Chapter 51. Lin Hai, Luffy, and others just arrived at the coast. They saw a group of marines shooting at the Mary. When Lin Hai was about to take action, a huge wind suddenly blew. Lin Hai looked speechlessly in the direction of Darag. What a waste of time. After a gust of strong wind, the marines' formations were all disrupted and the artillery positions were destroyed by the wind. Who would dare to believe this? Space field. Lin Hai was on the boat, and Nami jumped up to him, so Lin Hai gladly accepted. Sanji's body was filled with sour fire. Lin Hai, UBD, let go of Miss Nami. Zoro was speechless. You bastards, pay attention, we are not out of danger yet. Only then did everyone realize that it was still raining heavily. I don't know how much time had passed, but Going Merry had already sailed out of the waters of Logue Town, but the dark clouds in the sky had not yet dispersed and the heavy rain was still falling. At this time, Lin Hai, Luffy, and Zoro were standing at the bow. Looking at the turbulent sea level, the waves of sea water seemed to be able to drown the Mary. Lin Hai sighed. This rainstorm seems to have lasted for a long time, right? Zoro nodded. It's been a long time. Luffy asked, will we be drowned by this wave? The three of them hadn't noticed that Nami's head behind them was already raging with anger. Duan. X3 Nami was furious. You three have a lot of free time, right? Do you know that we are almost too busy? At the right moment, Usopp said in horror, Nami, the ship is going to hit that mountain, think of a solution. Nami ordered, Sanji, steer quickly, 60 degrees left. Sanji cried, no, Ms. Nami, the current is too strong, there's no way to turn. At this time, Lin Hai said, it's my turn to take action. Zoro asked confusedly, what are you going to do? Lin Hai cried, cut it down. Nami grabbed Lin Hai's head and pointed at the mountain, saying in disbelief, look carefully, how are we going to cut it down? Lin Hai was speechless. Let me go quickly, or it will be too late. At one point, Lin Hai got into position, stretched out one hand, and placed his index and middle fingers in front of his chest at the same level as his chin. Then, a small space vortex appeared on the left side of Lin Hai, and a sword slowly emerged from the space vortex. The Gao Feng that comes out in this way becomes a double-edged sword, and is no longer a single-edged sword in its normal state. Lin Hai held the hilt of the sword and roared, space slash, one sword to split the mountain. Clang! Suddenly, a white light flashed like lightning, and the sea in front of the melee was split into two by Lin Hai's sword. I saw a huge crack appearing in front of me, accompanied by the sound of huge waves. This time Lin Hai learned his lesson and did not simply chop from bottom to top like last time, causing the middle part to become a space area, allowing sea water on both sides to pour in and form Uzumaki. At this time, Lin Hai cut along the melee to the right of the mountain at a 30-degree angle. In this way, the huge waves on the right side took the ship out. Because Lin Hai suddenly discovered that if the mountain was split, the bottom of the ship would still hit the reef. Although the danger of hitting the mountain was avoided, the bottom of the ship would be destroyed. Everyone was shocked by Lin Hai's operation. Lin Hai quickly reminded them, Nami, start commanding quickly, don't just stand there. You should know what to do now, right? Nami finally reacted and quickly ordered, Zoro, lower the sail first. Luffy, pay attention to the waves on the left, report immediately if there is any situation. Usopp, Sanji, turn right 60 degrees. Lin Hai, the front is left to you. I saw the Mary passing by the side of the mountain and almost hitting it. After some effort, I finally escaped the danger of crashing into the mountain. At this time, the heavy rain stopped, the sky cleared, and everyone lay on the deck, gasping for breath. The power of nature is truly amazing. After a long pause, Lin Hai smiled towards Nami and said, not bad, Nami. Your navigation skills are indeed the best in the world. You are truly a genius among geniuses. Even the navigators on the Pirate King's ship can't compare to you. Zoro was speechless and said, hey, aren't you exaggerating too much? Sanji said with his eyes full of love, Ms. Nami, I love you so much. Usopp exclaimed, Nami, you are amazing. Ha ha ha. Luffy stood up and patted Nami's shoulder and laughed, Nami, you guy. Nami punched Luffy and sent him flying. Then she said shyly, actually, I'm not as good as you say, but I accept your praise, hee. Tisk, shameless. Zoro couldn't help but mutter. Nami looked at Zoro dangerously and asked curiously, Zoro, what did you say? Zoro quickly changed the subject and said, Lin Hai, didn't you say last time that you would faint when you performed that move? Why didn't you faint this time? Yes. Everyone looked at Lin Hai in confusion. Lin Hai spread his hands and explained, genius is like this. I think for a genius, you shouldn't ask anything he does, because it can't be explained. Tell me, how can I explain this? This guy is as annoying as ever. I regret asking him that question. By the way, you don't know that the bounty on Lin Hai has become 300 million, right? 300 million. Usopp stepped forward in surprise and asked, what is going on? Lin Hai, why has your bounty become so outrageous? Nami exclaimed, 300 million? What on earth did Lin Hai do to deserve such a high reward? Lin Hai had no choice but to continue lying in order to improve his own betting skills and repeat the same lies he had used to fool Smoka before. Usopp exclaimed, Lin Hai, you are amazing. Nami agreed, so, Lin Hai, you are also an orphan. Lin Hai looked at Nami a little unnaturally, forget it, I have to pretend even if I cry. So, Lin Hai took out a guitar from the system. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, Lin Hai, you're a musician. Sanji took a puff of his cigarette and spat to himself, he's just pretending, he definitely can't play it. Zoro said with a smile, you are just jealous of others, right? Sanji said angrily, who is jealous of him? Believe it or not, I will kick you to death, UBD. Zoro retorted, come on if you dare, I'll chop you down first. Nami slapped her forehead and said speechlessly, I say, can you two stop fighting at every turn? Hi. Sanji quickly flattered, I'll listen to you, Miss Nami. At this time, Lin Hai had already started playing. Everyone quieted down and looked at Lin Hai, wondering what kind of song he would play. Chapter 52. Lin Hai was holding the guitar and strumming a few times, then he was embarrassed. He didn't know how to play, and he didn't have enough Fengxiao coins to buy the skill of playing the guitar. Even so, he didn't know the music score. So, Lin Hai could only pretend to play a few random notes, and then chanted, the autumn wind blows again, yesterday's dream. Flowers bloom and fall, looking back, nothing is there. The sea of thoughts is heavy, when will it be exhausted? After many years, it's all in a hurry. Luffy asked in confusion, Lin Hai, what are you talking about? Usopp shook his head in confusion to show that he didn't understand. Zoro added, Lin Hai, you can't play the guitar, right? This is intolerable and what is not? Is it that easy to show off? Lin Hai racked his brains and made up a few random words that just happened to fit the situation, but he was ridiculed by these guys. Lin Hai angrily said, what do you illiterate people know? Sanji turned to look at Zoro and asked, is he angry? Puff. Ha ha ha, Lin Hai, you are such an interesting guy. What an idiot, haha. So, Lin Hai became withdrawn again. Forget it, just squat in the corner and continue to draw circles. After the melee sailed for a while, Lin Hai remembered that he had received many rewards in Logue Town, and quickly called up the system panel, flirting system host Lin Hai physical fitness, level 7, top level 10, observation haki, second order armament haki, tier 2 conquerors haki, second stage with free control of the target of shock, skill 1, 1. Establish a space field 2. 1 sword style 3. Space / high level use of the space fruit, depending on physical strength. Skill 2, Dogu 9 swords, reference, system store, opened, flirtatious coins, 250. Lin Hai was in a good mood after browsing the system panel, but when he saw the flirtatious coin, he suddenly felt depressed. Lin Hai, flirtatious system, are you poisonous? Flirtatious system, host needs poison, which can be purchased at the system store. Does the host need to open the system store? Lin Hai said unhappily, no need. Soon, Nami gathered everyone together. She spread a nautical chart she got from Buggy on the table and pointed to a place on the map and said, everyone, the entrance to the Grand Line is a mountain. Sanji was confused, how is this possible? Usopp nodded and said, if the entrance is a mountain, how do we get in? Do we just crash into it? Luffy smiled and said, just rush over. Nami slapped her forehead, and Kaido said, that's what it's marked on the map. Zoro asked, Nami, this map was taken from Buggy, could it be fake? Lin Hai looked at everyone with disdain and sneered, a bunch of illiterates, didn't you notice the contour lines on the map? Contour lines? What are those? Yet? I don't know why it's so impressive. Oh, I know. It's just the incredible contour lines. Luffy was kicked away by Nami, and Nami asked, Lin Hai, do you know how to get over there? Lin Hai raised his eyebrows at the others, and then said, this map actually displays the three-dimensional space in a two-dimensional way. Yes, these data are the evidence. Fortunately, my geography teacher forced me to learn it in high school. Seeing that everyone except Nami was confused, Lin Hai had to say to Nami, Nami, look at this red line, there should be a special current flowing from the sea to the mountain, carrying the boat up. After that, the boat flows along the current to the other side of the red line. Nami clapped her hands and exclaimed, I see, it's incredible nature, thank you, Mua. Seeing this, Sanji knelt directly on the deck and kept patting it, why not me, why not me? Luffy looked at Lin Hai with shining eyes, Lin Hai, you can do this, you. Bang! Luffy was directly slapped away by Lin Hai. Lin Hai raised an eyebrow at Zoro proudly. Tisk! Zoro glanced at one place and muttered, what's so great about that? I won't write about the Millennium Dragon plot anymore, it's too long and boring. Finally, Going Merry is almost at the red line. The sky, which was cloudless just now, suddenly became covered with dark clouds and heavy rain. Nami was about to ask everyone to work hard, but suddenly found that Lin Hai was about to draw his sword again, so he stepped forward and asked, Lin Hai, what are you doing? Are there any enemies? Lin Hai turned around and said slowly, I'm really upset to see so many dark clouds in the sky. I want to chop them down. Zoro smiled with interest and asked, can you do this? Luffy's eyes lit up and he asked, really? You can even split the clouds. Usopp exclaimed, don't be silly, how can this be possible? At this time, Lin Hai had slowly pulled out the knife. Duan! X3 Nami, who couldn't bear it any longer, knocked down Lin Hai, Luffy and Zoro with one punch each. Nami said angrily, oh, come on, everyone is like this. Do you know what the situation is now? Do you see that lighthouse? Hurry up and fold the sails, we are about to enter the Grand Line. Boom! A white light flashed across the sky, and a bolt of lightning directly shocked Lin Hai who had just stood up. Who made him point a knife at the sky? Nami turned her head mechanically and asked weakly, Lin Hai? Are you okay? Lin Hai felt very strange, a level 7 physique was struck by lightning but nothing happened. If this happened on Blue Star, I dare not think about it. Lin Hai quickly put away his knife, then unzipped his crotch. Fortunately, everything was fine. Fortunately, everything was fine. The people on the side immediately understood Lin Hai's intention, and all their faces turned black. At this time, Luffy took out a bucket and placed it in the middle of the deck, then said, everyone, we are about to enter the Grand Line, let's talk about our dreams. Then Luffy placed his heels on the barrel, I want to be the king of pirates. Lin Hai, I want to be the most charming and charming brother. Brother Lang? Based on Lin Hai's past behavior, everyone understands. Zoro, the world's greatest swordsman. Sanji all the blues. Nami, I want to draw a world map. Usopp hesitated for a moment before saying, I want to be a brave sea warrior. Grand Line, here we come. Under this stormy sky, no one could have imagined that the future world would become so colorful because of these young people who are just starting out. Especially the man who wanted to be so sexy. Chapter 53. Hurry up and pull down the sail, we need to follow the current into the entrance. Nami ordered hurriedly. Usopp looked ahead in horror and said, isn't that entrance door too small? The ship will crash into it. Think of a solution. Sanji said angrily, Lin Hai, Luffy and Zoro, you three bastards, the ship is about to crash and you are still drinking tea. Lin Hai looked at Sanji with disdain, what are you yelling about? F***CK. Space field. Lin Hai quickly used his ability to change the boat's sailing position to avoid the danger of collision. I saw the door flying past everyone's peripheral vision. Sanji, who had recovered, grabbed Lin Hai by the collar and yelled, UBD, do it earlier. You scared me to death just now, you know that. Zoro exclaimed, Lin Hai, your ability is really useful. Lin Hai smiled and said, that's right, the things that geniuses have are so cool. Luffy pouted and said, what's so great about that? My rubber can grow bigger or smaller, and can also be stretched. Lin Hai said angrily, shut up, you stinky rubber. Do I have to become a pile of rubber like you to be cool? Luffy retorted, rubber fruit is the coolest. Lin Hai, cool shit, just crap rubber. Luffy, what did you say? Duan. X2 Nami was helpless, can you guys stop messing around? The danger is not over yet. Be serious. It comes quickly and goes quickly. Luffy and Lin Hai soon stood side by side admiring the waves that were quickly swaying behind them. Because the boat was sailing upwards, everyone felt overweight, a feeling they had never experienced before. Wow, what a beautiful view. Do you feel your body is very different? Ahem, I have some motion sickness pills here. If anyone wants one pill costs 1 million Baileys. Stinky Lin Hai, you think we are pigs? Just when everyone was experiencing the feeling of flying, the boat suddenly flew up due to inertia. It turned out that it had reached the top of the boatway. Ah! What happened? The boat seems to be flying. Oh, what should I do? What should I do? I am going to die. The ship is destroyed and everyone is dead. Luffy, Lin Hai, you two should think of a solution quickly, if this continues. Lin Hai was speechless, hold on to the handrails, this is normal, damn. Wow, what an incredible ocean current, so interesting. What a joke, hold on to the handrails, don't get thrown out. Because the boat was falling from a high altitude, everyone hadn't reacted yet. From the overweight state just now to the weightlessness at this moment, it was like a terrifying roller coaster in an amusement park. It's so exciting that makes people call mom. After the boat was drifting steadily downstream, Lin Hai's observation Haki could clearly feel that there was a big object at the bottom of the boat channel. That should be the legendary Laboon. No matter what it is, if it dares to block the boat, just chop it off. Seeing Lin Hai in a fighting stance in front of the ship, Zoro couldn't help but ask, Lin Hai, what are you doing? Are there any enemies? Yes. Lin Hai explained, there is a big whale down there. If we don't kill it, our ship will hit it directly. Luffy stopped him, Lin Hai, don't hack away. There will always be a way. Usopp echoed, Lin Hai, why do you like to chop things so much? Lin Hai was speechless, you don't know how big that whale is. Oh. Suddenly there was an extremely loud sound wave, which was the sound made by the whale. Was it preparing to crash into the mountain? The people on the Mary all covered their ears. Perhaps Luffy had the ability to listen to the sounds of all things, and he heard loneliness and solitude in the whale's cry, so he was determined not to let Lin Hai chop it. Lin Hai said helplessly, since you all object, then make preparations for the aftermath and figure out how to stop the boat. Otherwise, it will collide. Zoro asked confusedly, can't you teleport the ship away? Lin Hai was speechless, have you ever learned the law of conservation of momentum? Foot equals mv. If I stop the boat instantly, the impulse it receives will almost break it apart. Luffy hit his right hand with his left hand, oh, so it's the incredible law of conservation of momentum. Nami punched Luffy and said anxiously, hurry up and think of a solution, we're about to collide. Lin Hai said, don't be nervous, if you can't get out after entering the whale's stomach, I will make a hole in its stomach. After saying that, Lin Hai hugged Nami's waist and smiled faintly, don't worry, Nami, even if this whale wants to eat, it will eat them first. If the whale is full, then... Nami said in horror, it's already this hour and you're still in the mood to joke. Seeing Nami being hugged by Lin Hai, Sanji actually forgot his fear and shouted with anger all over his body, Lin Hai, let Nami go. The whale suddenly opened its mouth wide, and then the boat was swallowed by the whale. In the whale's belly, oh, is this the belly of a whale? How interesting. Hey, what's with the blue sky and seagulls up there? It must have been painted on. Nami said anxiously, I say, you guys, is this the time to worry about this? Hurry up and think of a way to get out. Lin Hai pointed to a small island on the side and said, there should be people living there, so be at ease. The most important thing now is to have a barbecue. It seemed that Lin Hai took out the fish he had brought from the space, and then used his sword to grill it leisurely. As soon as Luffy saw the food, he threw everything else out of his mind and muttered, Lin Hai's grilled food is not as delicious as Sanji's. Sanji, grill grill grill. Nami slapped her forehead, I said you guys. Sanji consoled her, Ms. Nami, since you don't know what to do for now, why don't you eat something first? Zoro sat next to Lin Hai with interest and said with a smile, Lin Hai, have a beer. Luffy agreed, Lin Hai's beer is the best, cold and exciting. Nami also said, give me one too. Lin Hai joked, why, you're not going to continue shouting for help. Nami twisted Lin Hai's ears directly, you guy. Sanji knelt on the ground again and patted the board, Lin Hai, you guy, I envy you so much. The fire had just started, and after a while, I saw the door of the house on the small island next to the boat open. Chapter 54. The door of the house on the small island was opened, and an old man walked out. His hair was very special. The top of his head was bald, and the hair around his head was like a peacock's tail. As soon as the two sides met, the old man glared at the Straw Hat crew with a fierce look. He didn't even look at the road, but he was able to find the location of the chair. After he sat down on the chair, he remained silent and just stared at the Straw Hat crew. Everyone was frightened by the old man's aura and fell silent. Usopp was the first to be unable to bear that aura, and instinctively said, "You, what are you looking at us like that for, do you want to fight?" The old man said in a low voice, "I advise you not to do this, it will kill people." Being provoked by others, Zoro smiled evilly, "Oh? Who is going to die?" The old man said fiercely, "It's me." Sanji's eyes bulged, "It's you." Ha ha ha. Luffy held his stomach and laughed, "You're so funny." Zoro always felt that he was being fooled, and asked in a somewhat unfriendly tone, "Who are you?" "Old man Kaido, shouldn't you introduce yourself first when asking someone a question?" "Oh, sorry, I..." Just as Zoro was about to speak, the old man spoke first, "My name is Crocus, I'm 71 years old, and I'm a doctor." Lin Hai quickly grabbed Zoro who was about to run away, handed him a bottle of beer, and looked at the doctor with some curiosity. If I remember correctly, Crocus was the ship doctor on the Pirates King Gol.D. Roger's ship. His fighting power was not shown in the original book, but judging by observation haki at this time, this old man is very strong. Crocus shifted his gaze from Luffy's hat and looked at Lin Hai with some curiosity. Being stared at like this, Lin Hai always felt uncomfortable, so he said, "What are you looking at?" "If you want to drink beer, buy Bailey's. A bottle is 20 Bailey's. Plan." Nami gave Lin Hai a hammer, took the beer he had just taken out, and said with a smile, "He was just joking, take it." Cloacus looked at the new wine and said, "I didn't ask you for beer, you treated yourself." As soon as he took a sip, he couldn't help but praise it, "This beer is really delicious, can I have another bottle?" Lin Hai couldn't help but complain, "Another bottle? Do you think this is a lottery? If you want to drink, take Bay." "Nami. I don't care, this Bailey is directly on your head." Ha ha ha. Luffy couldn't help but said, "Uncle, you are so interesting. By the way, can you tell us how to get out of here?" Cloacus pointed to a part of the door and said, "You can get out from there." At this moment, the whale suddenly rolled over. Cloacus understood what happened and muttered angrily, "It must be the people from Baroque Works who are targeting Laboon again. This is outrageous." Lin Hai pointed at the man and woman on his boat and asked, "Are you referring to them?" The man and woman who jumped onto the Mary were actually Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday. The English is too long and I type slowly, so I just replaced it with Hyuxia. Miss Wednesday is the Princess of Alabasta, Nefertari Vivi. The two people who boarded the ship were so arrogant that they were beaten down by Luffy. Later, under the leadership of Crocus, everyone came out of the belly of the giant whale Laboon. At the right moment, Nami looked at his messed up compass and couldn't help asking, "Uncle, is my compass broken?" Cloacus Kaido, common sense doesn't apply in these waters. That compass isn't broken. Nami immediately understood and asked tentatively, "Then, is it a magnetic field?" Looking at the straw hat on Luffy's head, Crocus knew that he had a deep connection with the owner of the straw hat, Roger. In addition, the Straw Hat gang did not look like bad people, and he had just drunk something from them. So, Crocus didn't mind helping them and explained, "That's right. Because the islands in the Grand Line contain a lot of magnetic minerals, the magnetic field of the entire route is very abnormal, and the ocean currents and wind directions are unpredictable. If you are a navigator, you should understand how terrible this place is." "Nami, that's true. If there is no way to point out the direction, it will be very hopeless." Cloacus smiled and said, "If you want to sail in the Grand Line, you must have a record pointer." "Nami, record pointer? I've never heard of it." Cloacus explained, "It's a special compass that can record magnetic force. After Nami has learned the situation, it is time to deal with the two people from the Baroque works. They want to go back to Whiskey Peak, but there is no boat, so they can only take the Mary. Usopp asked them, "Who are you guys? Mr9, please take us to Whiskey Peak." Nami asked, "Where is that, Mr9? It's the town where we live." Nami, "Where's your own ship?" Vivi, "It's broken." Nami, "You are too self-centered, aren't you?" Mr. 9, "You were thinking about killing the whale just now." Usopp asked again, "Who are you guys?" Mr9, "I am the king." Lin Hai laughed, "You are really good at making up stories. Believe it or not, I will throw you into the sea." Wei quickly said, "Please don't, I can't say it." Mr9, "But we want to go back to town, and we don't want to be so sneaky." Wei, "No matter what, the purpose of our company is mystery." Mr9, "So we can't say anything." Wei, "We came here to ask for help because we value your character." Mr9, "We will definitely repay this kindness." Wow! Lin Hai couldn't help but exclaimed, "These two guys are really smart. Are they telling a crosstalk?" Luffy, "You decide." Cloacus warned, "Don't worry about them. No matter what they say, these two guys are not good people." After thinking for a while, Luffy said, "Let them get on the boat. They said they were going to Whiskey Peak, right? That's where we'll go." Usopp was puzzled. "Is this true? Are you going to bring these two guys with you?" Luffy sighed, "What does it matter? Don't worry about trivial matters." Lin Hai said, "Since the captain has decided, let's go there." "But what about that mister? You have the record pointer, right?" Mr. 9 carefully took out his record pointer and said, "You must take good care of it. This is the only one left. If it breaks..." Nami grabbed the record pointer and said, "You're so long-winded." Oh! It was the roar of the giant whale Laboon again. Everyone couldn't help but cover their ears. It seemed that the whale was very angry. This is the rhythm of hitting the mountain again. Chapter 55. Seeing that Laboon was about to go crazy again, Luffy couldn't help but ask, "Uncle, why did it hit the mountain with its head? Is it because the food here is not to its liking?" Everyone's face darkened, and Zoro couldn't help but retort, "Do you think everyone is like you?" Lin Hai joked, "Wrong, it should be Luffy who thinks that animal is the same as Luffy." Usopp agreed, "Luffy's appetite seems to be better than that animal's, right?" Seeing Luffy smiling even though he was being bullied by his own crew, Mr. 9 couldn't help but ask Mr. Wednesday, "Is he really the captain?" Miss Wednesday was confused, Probably. Sanji, who was standing by, couldn't help but laugh and said, "Luffy, you should be more careful next time. People say you don't look like a captain." "Ha ha ha, you guys are all so funny," Luffy said to Kaido without caring. At the right moment, Cloacus explained, 50 years ago, a group of pirates brought Laboon here. Because Laboon was too small, the pirates could not take it on adventures and could only leave it here. Finally, they made a promise that after the pirates had gone around the world, they would come back and take it away. Unfortunately, the pirates had not returned for 50 years, so Laboon. 50 years ago. Usopp muttered, and everyone understood what he said next. Luffy looked at Crocus and couldn't help asking, "Didn't you tell it that the pirates were destroyed?" Crocus sighed, "I told it, but it didn't listen." Seeing that Laboon was about to crash into the mountain again, Luffy suddenly thought of a way. He broke off the cabinet pole on his ship and inserted it into Laboon's head. Lin Hai on the side was dumbfounded. Usopp couldn't help it first. That was a gift from his childhood sweetheart Kaya. "So," he said angrily, "Luffy, you BD." Nami couldn't help but say, "Luffy, stop messing around." Luffy acted as if he didn't hear anything. After fighting with the whale for 2 rounds, he said, "Our duel this time is a draw. Now let's make a promise. Let's duel again after our ship sails around the world." Although no one could understand what the giant whale was saying, everyone could understand that it agreed. Lin Hai always wondered if these people had no sense of crisis, so he looked up and said, "Hey, you stinky fish, stop looking around, I'm talking about you, you BD fish. Do you know that our ship almost had a shipwreck because of you? Remember, the world is big and there are many beautiful things. Life is not lived by an agreement. You can go to the bottom of the sea and find a mother whale to play with, idiot. If you are not interested, then be content with being lonely, because loneliness is also a kind of romance, isn't it? Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. As a reward, the host will receive Conqueror's Haki, which is upgraded by 1 level. The surprise came so fast like a tornado. Another nonsense. Lin Hai was so surprised that he did dozens of backflips. Because he was too excited, he found a fish tank next to him. So, Lin Hai grabbed the beautiful fish in the fish tank, kissed it hard, and then threw it into the sea. Everyone present was confused by Lin Hai's operation. Sanji, who had reacted, asked weakly, Usopp, it seems that you caught that fish with great difficulty, right? Usopp had a special liking for that fish, but he didn't expect that not only was he kissed by Lin Hai, but he was also thrown into the sea. Lin Hai, UBD. Usopp was very unhappy, so he ran over and threw all the fish Lin Hai caught into the sea. Everyone! That's food, oh my! Going Merry finally left Twin Capes and prepared to drive to Whiskey Peak. However, the ship had just sailed for a short time and it was still summer just now, but now it started snowing. The weather in the pirates' world is really unpredictable, worthy of being the Grand Line. Lin Hai was surprised and said, Hey? This is the first snow in 1520. It came more suddenly than usual. You are like a flying butterfly. Phew. Hey, Luffy, Usopp, let's make a snowman. Luffy nodded and said, let's see who can make the best looking snowman. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Usopp laughed, when it comes to making snowmen, none of you can beat me. When I was in my hometown, I made snowmen for 50 years, and my attainments have reached the master level. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, Si Gao Yi, really? Usopp? Usopp nodded, of course. I really don't know whether Luffy is really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. He actually believed Usopp's lies. Lin Hai hurried into the kitchen and asked Sanji for some cane sugar. Luffy and Usopp had already started making a snowman. Seeing Lin Hai still standing there without moving, Luffy asked in confusion, Lin Hai, why haven't you started yet? So, you've given up the game. Lin Hai shook his head and said, you guys build it for a while. I'm thinking of building a snowman that will shock the world and make ghosts cry. Not long after, Luffy finished building the snowman. When Usopp was observing the snowman Luffy made, Lin Hai quickly sprinkled the cane sugar on the snowman Usopp made, and then ate it leisurely. Well, ice cream isn't that delicious, is it? Asking Lin Hai to build a snowman? Are you kidding? Sugarcane and kneaded snow, that's what we're after. Usopp reacted and said angrily, Lin Hai, what did you do to my snowman? Lin Hai picked up a bunch and threw them to Usopp, try it. Usopp listened to Lin Hai's words for some reason, took a bite, and exclaimed, it's delicious. When Luffy heard that it was delicious, he couldn't help it and swallowed it in one gulp. At the same time, Mr. Nine and Mr. Sunday were in the room, shivering at the table. Miss Wednesday asked, don't you have heating here? Mr. 9 echoed, what kind of ship is this? We are freezing. Nami was drawing a map, but these two people kept chattering away. She got annoyed and kicked them out of the room. Then, they saw the scene on the deck. Usopp and Luffy were constantly making snowmen, while Lin Hai was scattering ingredients there. Then they piled it up and ate it at the same time, just like they were having a barbecue. Nami and the other two were completely confused by Lin Hai and the others' operation. Chapter 56. Mr. 9, are they eating? Mr. Wednesday, no, they should be eating ice cream, right, Mr. 9, wow, they are really geniuses. Shut up. Nami said, you guys are just wearing short sleeves, aren't you cold? Short sleeves? Cold? Lin Hai and the others finally reacted. Luffy shivered, then realized, it's so cold. Lin Hai asked, aren't you going to eat any more? Usopp cried, eat, why not? But first go back and get some clothes to wear. By the way, where's Zoro? Lin Hai pointed to one spot and said, he's dreaming. Seeing Zoro almost buried in the snow, he was still sleeping so soundly. Mr. 9 couldn't help but mutter, I feel like everyone on this ship is abnormal, right, Miss Wednesday? Lin Hai retorted, can you talk? When we reach our destination, pay the boat fare. As for Mr. Wednesday, Lin Hai knew that she was the princess of Alabasta. But seeing that she seemed to have a purpose in everything she did, Lin Hai felt unhappy. At this moment, a flash of lightning suddenly flashed across the sky, and everyone was confused. Wasn't it snowing? Why was there thunder? What on earth is going on? I saw dark clouds and a small tornado not far away. Wipe. Faced with this strange sight, Lin Hai couldn't help but want to try whether his sword could split the clouds, but just as he was about to make a move, he was violently slapped by Nami. Stop messing around. Nami said confidently with his hands on his hips, everyone, in this sea, even my most trusted navigation skills are not effective, so you all should be serious. Usopp was speechless. It doesn't work, and you still say it so confidently. Luffy's eyes sparkled as he said, Silk Cake 1. Lin Hai clapped his hands and laughed, I have never seen such a shameless person. Sanji came out of the kitchen, eyes sparkling, and said, as expected of Miss Nami, if you have anything to say, please feel free to tell me. Heavy rain and snow, commonly known as a blizzard, in this abnormal climate that has never been encountered before. Going merry, just drifting on the rough sea. Fortunately, Nami has superb navigation skills, otherwise most of the people on the boat would have to go to the sea to feed the fish. Once again, the sky cleared up after the rain, and Zoro finally woke up. He stretched lazily with contentment, looking at the blue sky with wind and a few white clouds floating by. It was another beautiful day. When Zoro noticed Lin Hai and the others lying listlessly on the deck, he couldn't help but say, I'm telling you guys, even if the weather is good, you don't have to be so lazy, right? If you want to sleep, go back to your room, or you'll catch a cold. Nami, who could no longer bear it, said in a gloomy tone, Zoro. Zoro turned and asked, what's wrong Nami? Plan. Zoro held his head, rubbed it, then looked up angrily and asked, what are you doing? Plan. Zoro was greeted with another violent blow. Nami said angrily, UBD, do you know what happened on the boat just now? No matter how I called you, you were unwilling to wake up. Zoro now understands the truth, the women on the boat are tigers, if you meet them, you must avoid them. Going merry finally sailed into Whiskey Peak. Halfway through, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday jumped directly into the sea and went home. After the Mary entered the harbor, people on both sides actually began to warmly welcome the pirates. Because pirates are these people's source of income, they are all employees of Baroque Works, and their side jobs are as bounty hunters, specializing in targeting pirates. Usopp saw people on both sides lining up to welcome him, and waved and smiled, hello, my name is Usopp, a brave sea warrior. Sanji only has eyes for beauties. When he saw the women warmly welcoming him, his eyes turned into hearts and his IQ dropped. There are so many beautiful ladies. Is this a paradise on earth? I love you. Only Nami and Zoro remained on guard on the Mary, and because Lin Hai had seen King of Pirates, he naturally knew the identities of these people, but he didn't care. As soon as the ship docked, Luffy and his crew were welcomed in by bounty hunters led by Akalem, also known as Mr. 8, to attend the pirates' banquet. As soon as Luffy heard about the party, he ran after them. When Zoro heard about drinking, he also ran away. When Nami heard that there was a reward of 100,000 baileys for drinking, she also ran away. As for Sanji, once he saw a woman, he ran away without anyone leading him. And Usopp, this vain guy, loves to join in the fun. Lin Hai was left alone. Seeing that Lin Hai did not attend the banquet and did not like Bailey, one of them asked tentatively, what does this distinguished guest like? Lin Hai sighed, I prefer to go to a quiet place and have a good sleep. Sorry for bothering you guys. The leader winked, and the others immediately understood. Two young and beautiful girls came forward and said, Dear guests, please follow us. Lin Hai raised his eyebrows. Did these people misunderstand? What a deep routine. Before Lin Hai could protest, his arms were pulled into the room from left and right. A woman said in a seductive voice, Handsome guy, you must be thirsty after taking the boat here? He he he. Another woman began to persuade him to drink, haha, if you're thirsty, try our local specialties, they're very famous in East Blue. Hiss. Lin Hai finally understood what it meant to be possessed by an evil spirit and couldn't stand it. A wave of conquerors' colored haki instantly enveloped the place, knocking them all unconscious. Only then did Lin Hai begin to eat and drink with peace of mind. After all, drinking with these people with ulterior motives is like Tang Santang walking into the spider cave. How can you eat and drink? Looking at their expressions, Lin Hai was speechless. Who is the hunter and who is the prey? But tonight will definitely be a very interesting night, because tonight is the battle for Zoro's rise, Zoro versus more than 100 bounty hunters. Chapter 57. Looking at the people who fainted around him, Lin Hai himself was not really a bloodthirsty person. Although they had bad intentions before, Lin Hai really couldn't bring himself to do it. So Lin Hai ate and drank there by himself, and after he was full, he took a short rest and smoked a cigarette after the meal, which made him feel like a living god. When I walked out of the room, it was already late at night. I really didn't expect time to pass so quickly. Lin Hai quickly released observation haki to find out what was going on. Wow, Zoro has already started a fight with those bounty hunters. Ahem, the battle isn't over yet, but the scene on the roof is really interesting. Lin Hai quickly went over to take a look. At this time, Zoro was fighting with Mr. 9 on the roof. Mr. 9's attack method was to attack with his somersaults. Ha ha ha. Mr. 9 somersaulted and used the baseball in his hand to fight Zoro. Are you scared? Under such a fierce attack from me, can you not hold on? The two fought for a while. Zoro looked at Mr. 9 curiously with a knife in his hand and said speechlessly, "Are you serious?" At this time, Mr. 9 had already separated from Zoro. He didn't expect that all his attacks were resolved. But he didn't lose the momentum. Mr. 9 pointed the baseball at Zoro and said, "Roranoa. Zoro, do you think I can only flip so many times? I can flip more. Watch out." After saying that, Mr. 9 continued his somersaults. Unexpectedly, this was a rooftop, and behind Mr. 9 was not land, but air. Then Zoro looked at Mr. 9 and the car flipped over. Facing such an opponent, Zoro was speechless and said, "Is there no decent opponent?" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Miss Wednesday already taking a stance, and then pointed at Zoro and said, "A decent opponent? Roranoa. Zoro, once you meet me, that's the end of it." Zoro said playfully, "Really? Next to Mr. Wednesday there is a big duck, its name is Run Fast, and it is Miss Wednesday's mount." At the right moment, Miss Wednesday sat on Pao Kui's back and said, "Pao Kui, let's go." Ah! But received the order and immediately rushed forward with Mr. Wednesday. And then, Zoro watched them rush past. Zoro was speechless and said, "Are you guys still going to fight or not?" Miss Wednesday is really speechless. How can he run so fast? Lin Hai, who was watching on the side, couldn't hold back anymore. "Ha ha ha, this is really making me laugh to death. Did this duck drink fake milk powder?" Zoro saw Lin Hai coming over and couldn't help but ask, "Where are Luffy and the others?" "Still sleeping," Lin Hai said as he walked towards Mr. Wednesday, pointed at the duck and joked, "Mr. Wednesday, your mount is really useless, why don't we roast it?" Miss Wednesday objected, "What a joke, running fast is my partner." "Ah!" But screamed after hearing Lin Hai's words. Miss Wednesday quickly comforted him, "Don't worry, I won't let him roast you." Lin Hai poked the duck's head and asked Miss Wednesday, "Your mount is so weird. Shouldn't a duck quack? Why does it keep quacking?" Miss Wednesday said angrily, "Don't act like we are friends, we are enemies now." Lin Hai interrupted, "You are no match for us. Run away now. Your mission has failed." "I heard that your mission failed." "Wait a minute, there will be assassins to take care of those who failed the mission." After Miss Wednesday heard what Lin Hai said, she immediately realized that she couldn't die here. She had to go back to Alabasta and expose Crocodile's conspiracy. "Thank you for your reminder." After saying that, Miss Wednesday ran away quickly. At the right time, Lin Hai threw a bottle of beer to Zoro, and the two of them sat on the rooftop and drank beer leisurely. What Lin Hai said was indeed true. Miss Wednesday had just walked a distance on the street when she was chased by Mr. 5 and his partner Miss Valentine. Halfway through, the identities of Miss Wednesday and Akalem, the manager of Whiskey Peak, were revealed. Miss Wednesday was actually Princess Vivi of Alabasta, and Akalem was the captain of Alabasta's guard. All the people who were helping Princess Vivi cover her escape were interrupted by Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, leaving only Run Kui to run away with Vivi. Miss Valentine, "Ah ha 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 ha, Mr. 5, if you don't chase her, she'll run away." "Mr. 5, she can't run away." After saying that, Mr. 5 started picking his nose, then shot the stuff he dug out of his nostrils towards Vivi. Booger bomb! Boom! At this time, Mr. 5 was full of doubts. Wasn't he shooting towards Vivi? "How did you blow up Miss Valentine?" Mr. 5 was furious and said, "Who on earth is it? Come out now. Not far away, Lin Hai and Zoro were fighting. Lin Hai, why do you still owe Nami 200,000 baileys, UBD? It's only 20 baileys, and you don't even have it. You are so handsome, you poor BD. Zoro retorted, that stinky woman Nami, I borrowed 100,000 belly from her and I paid her back the same day, but who knew she would ask me to pay her back an additional 200,000 belly? Lin Hai said disdainfully, are you out of your mind? Borrowing 100,000 baileys and paying back 300,000. Hey! Zoro cried, someone still owes Nami 1 million berries, how dare you say that to me, you shameless BD. That's right, just now, Akaram asked Nami and his friends to save the Princess of Alabasta, and promised a rich reward. So, Nami agreed. She ordered Lin Hai and Zoro to rescue Princess Vivi on the grounds that her money was her money and the agreement she signed was everyone's agreement. Of course Lin Hai and Zoro disagreed, but Nami said that they owed her money, so the current scene occurred. At this moment, Miss Valentine recovered. The sudden explosion made her furious. She flew into the air and dealt a heavy blow to Lin Hai and Zoro who were quarreling. Miss Valentine in midair said with a gloomy face, faced with opponents like us, you actually don't take us seriously. Don't die and regret it later, ahahaha. At this time, Miss Valentine has already started to use her skills. 1 kilogram, 100 kilograms, 1000 kilograms, 10,000 kilograms, crushed by gravity, go to hell, you bastards. As she spoke, Miss Valentine was already falling at a very fast speed, and was about to hit Lin Hai and Zoro. Nami on the side said angrily, I'm telling you guys, be serious. Chapter 58. Mr. Valentine has already landed, but the effect is a bit surprising. At this moment, everyone is confused. I saw Mr. Valentine lying in Lin Hai's arms. Lin Hai looked at Mr. Valentine in his arms and said, beautiful lady, you are a little heavy, but it doesn't matter, you have a great figure. This was the first time Mr. Valentine had seen such a situation. What had happened just now? Could it be that his ability had failed? Thank you. Mr. Valentine was a little confused. Kide, you, what do you want to do? Lin Hai said affectionately, you are the wind and I am the sand, what do you think? Mr. Valentine looked at the handsome man in front of him and wondered why he suddenly said this to himself. However, Mr. Valentine had never watched the Hyuxia Kayang Yao opera, so he didn't understand what that sentence meant. So, Mr. Valentine Kide, I am not the wind, and I hate sand. Where are you touching, UBD? If I remember correctly, we are still enemies, right? Let me go. Lin Hai's face darkened. Shouldn't the woman in his arms reply, we'll be together forever? What a shame. Lin Hai angrily said, I hate illiterate people, go Pikachu. After saying that, Lin Hai threw Mr. Valentine out of his arms. Everyone looked at Lin Hai in confusion. Isn't this change too big? At this time, Lin Hai pointed at Mr. 5 and said, hey, you nose-picking guy, stop looking around, I'm talking about you, you ugly thing, your hairstyle is really bad, is that how you got your afro hairstyle? If you have no taste, don't do your hairstyle randomly. If you are ugly, just admit it and don't make yourself a mess. If you scare children, can you take the responsibility? So, now, immediately, take the overweight illiterate woman next to you and get out of my sight. I don't want to see you again. Zoro and Nami's eyes twitched, and Princess Vivi on the side felt like her brain was freezing. What was going on? At this time, Nami reacted and couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle, but finally she couldn't hold it back anymore. Ah ha ha ha, Lin Hai you guy, ha ha ha. Nami held her stomach and laughed. Mr. 5 on the side was silent for a while, then angrily said, who are you? Get out of the way, oversized bomb. After saying that, MR5 has already started the attack. Room, space barrier. Lin Hai used a move he had recently come up with, and in the space field, he sealed up the bomb launched by the opponent with layers of space. For a moment, the bomb launched by MR5 was thrown up and down by Lin Hai like a yo-yo. Zoro on the side was insightful and couldn't help but sigh, you can do this kind of thing. MR5 looked at the bomb he had fired in Lin Hai's hand. He actually treated it as a toy? MR5 said solemnly, who are you? Why are you trying to stop us? Cough cough. Lin Hai once again looked up at the starry sky at a 45-degree angle and said slowly, me? I have long forgotten who I am, Mr. 5. I have wandered around the world all my life, and the slippers on my feet will only kick up the yellow sand on the ground, and then disappear into the world behind me. So, don't ask who I am someone you can't afford to offend. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a special reward, becoming a swordsman, and understanding the essence of Dogu 9 swords. Wow, this is worth it. Zoro on the side secretly spit, what a show-off. But Lin Hai's operation is quite cool, I will learn from him in the future. It's over, Zoro's character has collapsed. Mr. 5 had a gloomy face and asked again, why on earth are you trying to stop us from carrying out our mission? Mr. 5 cannot retreat. The rule of Baroque is that anyone who fails in the mission will be hunted down by someone more powerful than himself. At this time, Mr. Valentine took out Lin Hai's bounty order and walked in front of Mr. 5. After seeing the amount of the bounty, Mr. 5 was stunned for a long time. How could such a big shot appear here? Soon, Mr. 5 hurriedly said, Mr. Lin Hai, we will give up this mission and will not disturb you anymore. What can he, Mr. 5, do? Asking him to deal with a monster with a bounty of 300 million berries would require him to be out of his mind. Wait. Lin Hai threw the bomb in his hand back to Mr. 5, I'll return your own things to you, but be careful, it will explode. Mr. 5 laughed secretly. He himself was the user of the explosion fruit, so he was worried about the explosion. As a result, after Mr. 5 Lin Hai threw something to him, as soon as he walked out of Lin Hai's space field, it suddenly exploded with a boom. When the smoke and dust cleared, Mr. 5 had already left with Mr. Valentine. He was indeed quite skilled. At this time, Vivi stepped forward and said, thank you for saving me this time. Nami smiled and said, you're welcome. We have conditions for saving you this time. A Kalam on the side came over and said to Vivi, Your Highness, the situation was urgent at the time, and I promised them rewards privately. Please forgive me for overstepping my authority. Vivi shook her head and said, don't worry about it. Nami's eyes sparkled as she said, since you are a princess, you must be very rich, right? How about we get you safely to Alabasta and you take 1 billion berries as your reward? Vivi cried, I can't afford that many baileys. Nami said in disbelief, how is this possible? Because Alabasta is in turmoil right now, Akalam explained. Vivi agreed, this is the purpose of our infiltration into Baroque works this time. We didn't expect that the riot in Alabasta was instigated by Baroque works behind the scenes. But after you send me to Alabasta, I will ask my father to give you the reward we can afford. What do you think? Lin Hai stepped forward and asked, the mastermind behind Baroque works is Crocodile, one of the Shishibukai, right? Shishibukai. Nami and Zoro exclaimed. Boom. Suddenly, a fist came from not far away, it turned out to be Luffy, but his fist was blocked by Lin Hai. Luffy said angrily, Lin Hai, get out of my way. I want to beat up Zoro. Nami asked in confusion, why? Luffy explained, why? Zoro is so ungrateful that he chopped up the people who invited us to dinner. Zoro was about to step forward to explain, but Lin Hai punched Luffy directly. Lin Hai said angrily, UBD, you are the captain, but you sleep like a pig and know nothing. How dare you be angry with Zoro? Luffy was furious, what are you talking about? You don't know, those were civilians, and they were chopped down by Zoro. Lin Hai was too lazy to explain, so what do you want? If you're unhappy, let's have a competition. Luffy cried, come on, who's afraid of who? Duan. X2 Lin Hai and Luffy both KO. Chapter 59. Ahahaha. After Nami and Vivi's explanation, Luffy finally realized that those people chopped down by Zoro were all bounty hunters. Luffy laughed awkwardly and patted Lin Hai on the shoulder and said, why didn't you tell me earlier? They are all bounty hunters. I wronged Zoro. Lin Hai slapped Luffy's hand away, grabbed his head, pointed at a cemetery at Whiskey Peak and said, see? If Zoro wasn't there, that's where you would sleep. Luffy nodded and said, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you, but the banquet just now was really fun. You know, Lin Hai, the food was so delicious, especially the squid, the delicious barbecue, and Nami was negotiating with Vivi about the payment, but was annoyed by Luffy's shouting. She said, shut up, everyone. Luffy, shut up now. At this time Zoro asked, Nami, I heard that this matter involves Shishibukai, are you sure you still want to participate? Nami then remembered, Shishibukai. Nami immediately exclaimed, I don't want the reward, goodbye. Oh, don't say goodbye. Isn't the contrast too great? Vivi said weakly, Nami, it's too late for you to regret, because you have already been drawn by those two birds. Nami exclaimed, I don't want that. Why are we being chased by the Shishibukai as soon as we get to the Grand Line? Seeing Nami so scared, Lin Hai couldn't help but sneer, you deserve it. Zoro and I were drinking there and having a good time, and I don't know who was greedy for money and insisted that we go to help. Duan. Nami exclaimed, I regret it so much, and you are still making sarcastic remarks. Lin Hai stood up and hugged Nami's waist and said with a smile, what are you afraid of? Why don't we escape back to Kikoyaxi village to give birth to a baby? Nami said angrily, let go of me, who wants to have a baby with you? Ahaha. Luffy laughed, what are you afraid of? It's just a Shishibukai. Since you've been targeted, let's go meet him. Nami retorted, what do you know? Do you know what level of pirates Shishibukai are? Hawkeye, the world's #1 swordsman, was one of the Shishibukai. Are we a match for people like them? Vivi nodded and said, there are 7 such people in total. With their overwhelming strength, the world government tacitly grants them privileges and the right to plunder other pirates. Luffy exclaimed, oh, are there so many other powerful characters like this? Zoro said with interest, Shishibukai, that's interesting. Nami was speechless and said, do you know the seriousness of the matter? Lin Hai said with a smile, Crocodile, one of the Shishibukai, seems to be very rich. I didn't expect that he actually sent his men to take our heads to the marine to collect the bounty. This is really absurd. If that's the case, we should ask Crocodile for compensation. What do you think? What? Everyone said in unison. Nami said in horror, you're going to ask Crocodile for compensation? You're going to kill yourself. Lin Hai ignored Nami's words and continued, when we are pirates, the first thing is to increase our bounty, and the second is to do whatever we want. Ugh, it's freedom. Now that someone has come to our door, there is no reason for us to swallow our anger. As free-spirited pirates, shouldn't we beat up anyone we dislike? Luffy smiled and said, that's a good idea, let's do it. Zoro tightened his grip on his sword in agreement. But Nami couldn't accept it and said, that's Shishibukai, I don't know what you are thinking. Lin Hai tempted, I heard that Crocodile is very rich, are you sure you don't want it? Seeing that the captain agreed, Nami had no choice but to do as he was told, plus Crocodile was tempted by the fact that he was rich. Nami perked up immediately and quickly turned to Vivi to confirm, is Crocodile really rich? Vivi nodded and said, he is indeed very rich. He has casinos in many places in Alabasta. Nami immediately cried, okay, then it's decided, let's go to Alabasta. At this time, Zoro said, where are Sanji and Usopp? Luffy then realized that they were still sleeping. So, Luffy said, I'll go get them and then we'll set off to Alabasta. This time, the Going Merry's departure was hasty. As soon as Sanji and Usopp woke up, they heard that they were going to ask for compensation from the Shishibukai crocodile. They almost dropped their jaws. Oh, it's such a rush. Who is speaking? Everyone turned to look at the railing of the room on the second floor of the boat, and saw a hot woman wearing a hat. In the design of the Mary, the second floor only occupies a portion of the ship's area. Luffy asked in confusion, who are you? Why are you on our ship? Vivi on the side explained, she is the vice president of Baroque Works, Nico Robin. As soon as they heard Vivi's introduction, everyone became alert. Luffy made a fighting gesture and said, are you here to avenge them? Nico Robin didn't answer, but used his flower fruit to take Luffy's straw hat and put it on his own head. Lin Hai looked at all this and felt bored, so he just lay down and took a deep sleep, because it was almost dawn and he hadn't slept yet. Who made those beauties so pitiful? If they were hungry, could Lin Hai not give them food? If they were lonely, could Lin Hai not comfort them? At this time, after some understanding between the Straw Hat crew and Nico Robin, Robin explained his purpose, saying that he was not here to seek revenge or to carry out a mission, but was just curious. Finally, Robin threw a permanent pointer to Nami, explaining that according to this permanent pointer, they could go directly to Alabasta. But Luffy was stubborn and destroyed the permanent pointer, thinking that the ship's route should be decided by him as the captain. Afterwards, Robin left on her turtle, and the Going Merry also set sail. Nami on the side found that Lin Hai fell asleep on the deck. Nami couldn't help but turn around and ask, "Is Lin Hai so tired?" Zoro said, "It seems like he hasn't slept at all." Nami put her hands on her hips and began to lecture Luffy and the others, "You guys are too unguarded, aren't you? As soon as we landed, except for Zoro and Lin Hai, all of you did the same. You must learn more from Lin Hai and Zoro in this regard, understand?" "Got it." X3 Nami said very satisfiedly, "Zoro, there's nothing to do now, do you want to go get some sleep too?" Zoro shook his head, "No, I got enough sleep during the day." I wonder what Lin Hai would feel when he heard in his sleep that Nami regards him as a role model? Chapter 60. Today's voyage was very smooth and we did not encounter any bad weather. At this time, it was already bright, and Nami and Vivi were chatting while standing at the railing on the second floor of the boat. Vivi pointed to where Lin Hai was sleeping not far away and asked, "What are they doing?" Nami shook her head and said, "Who knows? As long as they don't mess around, we should just ignore them." Vivi asked with concern, "That Lin Hai is sleeping there, should we give him a sheet?" Nami was speechless, "Don't pay attention to him, that guy is as strong as a monster. By the way, how about we go to the room and take a look at my new clothes?" Although she was asking, Nami had already pulled Vivi into the room. On the deck, Usopp and the others finished their work, tried their best to hold back their laughter, and then started fishing. I don't know how long it took, but Lin Hai finally woke up. "Ah, another day where I'm woken up by my own handsomeness." Just after muttering, Lin Hai realized something was wrong. This feeling is hard to describe. Oh, it turns out that the guys sitting over there fishing were too quiet, so quiet that it was a bit abnormal. Lin Hai didn't intend to pay attention to them. When he was about to go to the kitchen to find something to eat, he saw Zoro coming out of the training room. As soon as Zoro saw Lin Hai, he couldn't hold back, "Pucci, ha ha ha." Lin Hai asked in confusion, "What's so funny?" Just as Zoro was about to say something, Sanji quickly came over and covered Zoro's mouth and said, "Nothing, you're awake. You must be hungry? Everything is in the kitchen." "It's really inexplicable," Lin Hai said as he entered the kitchen, but he could hear faint laughter outside the boat. Something was really wrong. So, Lin Hai came out from the kitchen and said, "What's so funny?" "No, nothing. We were just telling jokes." Yes, that joke Usopp just told was so funny." Looking at the strange expressions of these people, Lin Hai was speechless. Could it be that they were impressed by his handsomeness? "Let's go ask Nami and the others." When Nami and Vivi saw Lin Hai's appearance, they both laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha, Lin Hai, what are you doing?" "Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, I can't stand it." Lin Hai was completely confused and quickly took the mirror in Nami's room to take a look. Ahem, what's with the 6 whiskers? Who the hell drew Lin Hai as a tabby cat? Wow, it's so lifelike, more real than the real thing. Good painting skills. Damn it. Suddenly, Lin Hai's furious voice rang out on the melee, "Who did it?" After a while, on the deck, Lin Hai said, "Tell me, who painted this?" "Not us," everyone said at the same time. Lin Hai shook his head and said, "Luffy, it must be you who did it, especially that beard, it's clearly your work." Luffy said anxiously, "Nonsense, I only painted the corners of the eyes." Luffy reacted and quickly covered his mouth. Lin Hai turned to look at Sanji and asked, "It was your idea, right?" Sanji played dumb and said, "What's the idea?" Lin Hai shook his head and said, "I originally had several photos of beautiful women here that I wanted to show you, but it seems you don't need them." Sanji quickly pointed at Usopp and said, "Usopp came up with the idea and he drew most of them." Usopp said in horror, "You guys." Suddenly, Lin Hai shouted, "Zoro, bring me my 40-meter-long sword." Upon hearing Lin Hai's words, Luffy's eyes lit up and said, "A 40-meter-long sword? Sije, Zoro, show it to me." Usopp exclaimed, "You idiot, Lin Hai is holding a knife against us." Luffy exclaimed, "Nani? No." Usopp's eyes twitched, he was really speechless about Luffy. Zoro on the side was confused. A 40-meter-long sword? If there was one, why didn't he know about it? Lin Hai said unhappily, "It's the kitchen knife next to you." When Luffy saw the kitchen knife, he immediately said with disdain, "What? I thought there really was a 40-meter-long sword." Usopp said weakly, "Luffy, could you please not be so expressive? Of course, Lin Hai was just threatening them, he would never really do anything to them. After a commotion, Lin Hai finally remembered the reward he received at Whiskey Peak, the essence of Dugu 9 Swords. The Dugu 9 Swords emphasizes cleverness and reverse thinking, which is one direction of kendo, but it is not Lin Hai's kendo. Because in this world, if you don't have enough strength, no matter how clever you are, you will either be chopped away or your sword will be cut off. And the real technique is to return to the most basic movements. Of course, this most basic movement is completely different from that for beginners. This requires observing a large number of moves, that is, gaining rich experience in actual combat, as well as constantly practicing to form instinctive body memory, etc., in order to achieve the simplicity of the Great Way. At present, this is Lin Hai's understanding of the way of swordsmanship. Although it cannot reach the level of simplicity, it is more than enough to beat Zoro. So, Lin Hai began to practice the chopping movements on the deck, repeating them over and over again. Lin Hai then discovered that there was always some deviation between the direction of chopping and the expected direction. This was a problem of proficiency. Zoro, who had been watching for a long time, couldn't help but stepped forward and asked, "Are you practicing swordplay?" Lin Hai nodded, "Yes." Zoro asked curiously, "Can a simple chop like this improve your swordsmanship?" Lin Hai said with a smile, "Everyone has a different understanding of kendo. Think about the day when you fought with Hawkeye, no matter how gorgeous your moves were, Hawkeye was able to defeat you with a simple sword strike. Why is that?" Zoro asked curiously, "Why?" Lin Hai cried, "Strength, speed, eyesight, proficiency, etc., you can slowly learn them yourself, but I still suggest that you learn how to cut iron first." Zoro nodded thoughtfully and returned to his training room. Why did Lin Hai practice sword? Because the space fruit is very compatible with swordsmanship. And Lin Hai's Gao Feng is so cool. The space fruit is different from the OPOP fruit. Although both of them establish a space field, the physical strength used by the OPOP fruit is definitely more than that of the space fruit. Furthermore, the development directions of the two fruits are different. The space fruit focuses on mysterious attacks and dodging, while the OPOP fruit focuses on medical skills. The two are incomparable. Some readers have responded that the space fruit is a lower level fruit than the OPOP fruit. Here, the author explains that this is not the case. Thinking of this, Lin Hai opened the system panel. Flirting system host Lin Hai physical fitness, level 7, top level 10, observation haki, second order armament haki, tier 2 conquerors haki, tier 3, target with free control of stun, enhanced stun effect, depending on the host's spirit. Weapon, Gao Feng, indestructible, normal form, comparable to a supreme sword, depends on the ability of the host. The summoned form is comparable to a divine weapon, has great lethality, and can easily destroy the environment. The host should use it with caution. Skill 1, 1. Establish a space field. Space exchange, space barrier 2. 1 sword style 3. Space / high level use of the space fruit, depending on physical strength. Skill 2, Dugu 9 Swords, reference, system store, opened, flirtatious coins, 2150. The third level Conqueror's Haki, is this a quantitative change in Haki? If I upgrade it one level, can I have Conqueror's Haki entangled? If Conqueror's Haki is wrapped around the sword, wouldn't it be Roger's move, Divine Evasion? Lin Hai secretly laughed, the Divine Evasion should require extremely high swordsmanship. Knowing Conqueror's Haki entanglement does not necessarily mean that you can Divine Evasion. It's too simple to think. It is better to practice the basics first. Lin Hai should be considered a great swordsman now. Chapter 61. The sea breeze blows across the sea from time to time, and the occasional cries of seagulls can be heard. Everywhere is blue. If you stay there for too long, people will always become bored and irritated. After Luffy and the others had a lot of noise, they all went to rest. After all, there was still some distance to go from Whiskey Peak to Little Garden. When Lin Hai was about to take a nap, Sanji ran over with a sly look in his eyes. Lin Hai asked in a puzzled voice, "What's going on?" "You're sneaking around." Sanji clenched his hands and said shyly, "Didn't you just say you had a photo of a beautiful girl? Bring it here and show it to me. How can I keep such a good thing to myself?" Lin Hai said with a smile, "I was just teasing you, I am a serious person." "Bah!" Sanji's expression changed in an instant and said, "So you're lying to me? How abominable!" Do you know how long I've been looking forward to it, and you say you haven't? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, if I don't say so, how can I let you tell the truth? The two people's voices gradually became louder, making everyone curious and looking at Lin Hai and Sanji, but Sanji was in a rage and didn't notice the people around him at all. At this time, Sanji retorted, you are shameless, you are vulgar, and you are unreliable. Lin Hai was also angry. Kaido, how am I shameless, vulgar, or unreliable? Sanji said, how are you not shameless, how are you not obscene, how are you reliable? Tisk. After saying that, both of them turned their heads away at the same time. Luffy on the side was full of questions, what are they doing? Usopp quickly shook his head, and Zoro glanced away, how embarrassing. At this moment, Vivi and Nami looked at Sanji and Lin Hai with red faces. At the right moment, Vivi turned to look at Nami and asked weakly, are they arguing about those photos? Nami is speechless. A princess of a country is here. Can you two stop being so embarrassing? Lin Hai and Sanji reacted and looked at each other, then quickly put their arms around each other's shoulders. Lin Hai said, how was our performance? After saying that, Lin Hai secretly gave Sanji a blow. Sanji raised his eyebrows and smiled, yes, we were just performing crosstalk, definitely not looking at some beautiful women's photos. After saying that, Sanji returned the favor to Lin Hai. Everyone's eyes twitched. Do you still need an explanation? Everyone heard the sound just now. I didn't expect Sanji to answer like this. Lin Hai whispered, you idiot, you're still talking about beautiful photos, aren't you just taking off your pants to fart? After being scolded by Lin Hai, Sanji quickly separated from Lin Hai and said angrily, what did you say? Lin Hai didn't care and retorted, I said you are an idiot. As soon as they finished speaking, the two started fighting. For a while, you kicked me, I kicked you, and it was a very lively fight. Luffy on the side said excitedly, yes, 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 kick, faster, hey Sanji, why don't you use your hands? Sanji was punched in the corner of the eye by Lin Hai. Although he was not injured, a panda eye appeared in the corner of Sanji's eye. Sanji quickly said, stop, no hitting in the face. Lin Hai said, okay, I won't fight anymore. Sanji was furious, no, I want to fight back too. Lin Hai quickly hid behind Nami and Vivi and said, Nami, are you going to do something about it? Sanji is going to hit someone. Ah! Vivi's face suddenly turned red. Nami turned around and asked, what's wrong Vivi? What should Vivi say about this? Vivi quickly cried, no, nothing happened. At this time Luffy said, I know, Lin Hai just touched Vivi's pigu. Usopp nodded and said, I saw that too, Lin Hai, you sarang. The boat suddenly became quiet, and suddenly a puff of smoke came out of Vivi's head, and her face turned red as if she was about to be cooked. Lin is here. Nami and Sanji shouted at the same time. Lin Hai was also furious and said, you BD straw hat and long nose, what truth are you talking about? I will fight you. What did you say? How dare you insult my straw hat? Lin Hai, you BD, you are using my nose to make trouble again, ah, Lin Hai hit someone. Suddenly, the ship became chaotic. Zoro leaned against the railing and muttered, what a noisy ship. I don't know how much time passed, but after the noise, everyone lay on the deck gasping for breath. After a while, everyone looked at each other, pointed at each other and laughed. At this time, Lin Hai, Luffy and Sanji all had messy hair, the only exception being Sanji who had a panda eye, which formed a sharp contrast with Usopp's panda eye. Lin Hai couldn't help laughing, ha ha ha, Sanji, you are so handsome, this fits your image. Sanji said depressedly, Luffy, we are on the same side, why are you scratching my hair? Luffy was confused, didn't Lin Hai say that he and I are in the same camp? Usopp retorted, can you please stand firm? We are in the same group, but you teamed up with Lin Hai to deal with me. Nami and Vivi who were watching from the side covered their mouths and chuckled. Hee hee. Looking at the ridiculous looks of the group of people, Nami said with a smile, what a bunch of idiots. At this time, Vivi found Zoro with a nosebleed and asked with concern, Zoro, are you okay? It's okay. Zoro quickly glanced away and secretly made up his mind that one day, he would chop that BD Usopp to death. If Usopp knew, he would definitely cry out that it was Sanji who kicked Lin Hai and accidentally kicked Usopp into Zoro. Zoro was sleeping at the time, and Usopp's back of the head hit Zoro's nose. At the right moment, Lin Hai quickly took out a mirror and a comb, stood at the railing, and started to do her hair in a very coquettish manner. When Luffy saw Lin Hai getting his hair done, he immediately said happily, "Lin Hai, give me a hairstyle too. But I don't want the slicked back hairstyle from last time, I always feel that it's not very good." Lin Hai spat on his hand, wiped it on his head in a very coquettish manner, and then said, "I am so handsome, I wonder how many ignorant girls will go crazy for me again. Being handsome is also a sin, and I don't want to hurt them." Everyone couldn't help but twitch their eyes. Sanji, who was standing aside, originally wanted Lin Hai to do his hair as well, but he saw Lin Hai smearing saliva on his hair. Sanji shuddered instantly and thought, he should do it himself, it's too disgusting. But it's different for Luffy. Lin Hai has done his hairstyle before. At this time, Luffy was looking forward to what kind of hairstyle Lin Hai would give him. It will surely amaze everyone. Thinking of this, Luffy hurriedly urged Lin Hai to quickly give himself a different hairstyle. Seeing Luffy coming forward, Usopp quickly said, "Hey, Luffy, Lin Hai uses his own spit." Lin Hai looked at Usopp with fish eyes. Usopp immediately exclaimed, "Ah, Lin Hai is going to hit someone again." Chapter 62. Zoro was about to go back to sleep when he suddenly heard that Lin Hai was going to do Luffy's hair. He immediately became interested. After all, Lin Hai's 4:6 hairstyle was really nice. Thinking of this, Zoro couldn't help but become interested. Should he also grow his hair long and get a hairstyle? No way. Zoro's hair is green, he knows that, if his hair grows longer, will it look like a hat? For some reason, Zoro always felt that there was deep malice from some other world, so he quickly gave up the idea of growing his hair long. Zoro continued to sleep. Meanwhile, Lin Hai looked Luffy up and down, and after some thought, he said, "Do you really not want that slicked back hairstyle?" Luffy nodded and said, "No, there are few hairs around my eyes, it doesn't look elegant at all, can you design a new hairstyle for me?" Lin Hai nodded and said, "A floating feeling? This is easy." As he said that, Lin Hai quickly bought some gel water from Feng Xiao system, and also bought an electric hair dryer, the kind that runs on batteries. Originally, Lin Hai wanted to give Luffy a sweat-like hairstyle. Since Luffy wants a flowing feeling, this is easy. Comb Luffy's hair, set it with gel, trim it, and then use a hair dryer to make Luffy's hair fluffy. The middle-parted hairstyle allows you to see your hair with both eyes. Isn't it elegant enough? After finishing, Lin Hai took out a mirror and threw it to Luffy. When Luffy saw his appearance, he immediately swallowed his saliva, his eyes lit up and he said, "Sister, so handsome, so handsome." Lin Hai slapped his forehead, "What a miscalculation." Lin Hai said helplessly, "Luffy, as long as you don't talk, you can definitely charm a lot of beauties, but when you talk, everything is exposed. Blame me for not taking your temperament into account." Luffy said happily, "Don't worry about the details. I want this hairstyle." After saying that, Luffy quickly ran off to show off to the others. Sanji, who was coming out of the room at this time, saw Luffy's appearance and was shocked by his hairstyle. Sanji wants it too, but his eyebrows are a problem. When he thought of this, Sanji could only be secretly jealous and shed tears silently in his heart. Usopp on the side touched his curly hair and said, "Oh, forget it." As soon as Vivi saw the different Luffy, she immediately exclaimed, "Luffy, you've become much more handsome." "Ah ha ha ha." Luffy said proudly, "Lin Hai did my hairstyle. I'm very satisfied with it." Sanji on the side couldn't help but said jealously, "Lin Hai is right, this hairstyle doesn't match your temperament. Sanji actually kicked him just now?" Thinking of this, Usopp said, "Are you jealous of his hairstyle?" Sanji said angrily, "You say that again? Believe it or not, I will beat you up, you long nose." Usopp cried, "You wanna fight? Zoro, go." Zoro rolled his eyes and said, "If you want to fight, do it yourself." At this moment, a dark shadow appeared in the distance, and it seemed that it was about to reach its destination. Nami on the side interrupted everyone's noise and said quickly, "Everyone, we are almost at Little Garden, get up and work." "Oh!" Everyone perked up immediately. Soon, the Mary sailed into the stream of Little Garden, and a cool breeze spread all over her body. Luffy immediately got excited and asked, "Everyone, do you feel like taking a chance?" Roar! Suddenly, the roar of a wild beast rang in everyone's ears, and everyone looked in the direction of the sound. Damn, why is there a tiger here? As for tigers, Lin Hai had only seen them in photos and on the screen in his previous life, but had never seen a real tiger. Lin Hai immediately said excitedly, Luffy, how about we make it our mount? Mount! Nami and others exclaimed. Usopp held Lin Hai's face and pointed at the ferocious-looking tiger and said, look carefully, how can you use such a dangerous tiger as a mount? Lin Hai asked in confusion, sit on its back, what else do you want? Luffy nodded and said, then it's settled. Before he could finish his words, everyone felt as if a huge bird was flying overhead. At a glance. Grass. Is that a pterosaur? Lin Hai's eyes lit up as he said, how come there is a dinosaur here? But this dinosaur seems to treat us as food. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Hai raised his knife and grabbed the huge flying dragon and brought it back to the boat. Because of its weight, the boat shook. Usopp exclaimed, Lin Hai, stop messing around. Nami and Vivi were so scared that they hugged each other and cried, I want to go home. The tiger on the shore was frightened for a moment by Lin Hai's action, and then ran away quickly. At this time, Luffy pouted and said, Lin Hai, why are you doing this? I want to ride on its back. Lin Hai rolled his eyes at Luffy, then said to Sanji, Sanji, it's time to show your skills. Nani? No way, Lin Hai, we're eating this. Hey, isn't this too much? Lin Hai was speechless, if you have the guts, don't eat it later. If you want to eat it, don't stand there and show it to me. Damn, don't hit my face. Sanji's cooking skills are really amazing. I have never seen this kind of ingredient before, but now he can cook it so deliciously. When Lin Hai took a bite of the food, he saw Luffy looking like a starving ghost again. Lin Hai couldn't help but retort, no one is competing with you for it, and there is still plenty of food. Can you be more capable? Usopp said angrily, Luffy, you come and steal my food again. Luffy slurred, oh, it's delicious. Zoro took a bite of the meat, took a sip of wine and said contentedly, I didn't expect this meat to be so delicious. Sanji smiled and said, there are still a lot of them, eat slowly. As soon as he finished speaking, Sanji placed the plate of carefully selected meat in front of Nami and Vivi and said attentively, Ms. Nami, Princess Vivi, this is the best, please try it. Luffy quickly said, I want one too. Sanji kicked over, this isn't for you. However, what everyone didn't know was that because the aroma of the meat was so fragrant, it attracted some creatures they had never seen before. Zoro, who was in the ship's lobby, stopped eating and asked, did you hear any noise? Lin Hai nodded and said, an incredible creature has arrived. Judging from its aura, it is very powerful. Nani? Chapter 63. When everyone heard Lin Hai say that the opponent was very strong, then he was really strong. Everyone couldn't help but put down the food in their hands, and they could faintly hear the sound of the earth shaking. Soon, everyone walked out of the hall and came to the deck. At first glance, it turned out to be a huge man walking towards them. Is that a person? Everyone shouted. Nami and Vivi were already hugging each other and crying again, I want to go home. Usopp and Badakwe lay down on the deck and pretended to be dead. At this time, Luffy exclaimed, it's so big. Hey, are you human? The giant smiled kindly. Kaido, are you asking me? My name is Broggy, I'm a giant, I guess I'm a human. Silgiae. Luffy's eyes lit up and he asked, are all the giants this big? Broggy nodded and said, that's about right. Are you pirates passing by? Are you having a party? I can smell the aroma of meat from far away. Sanji went straight to the kitchen and brought out a large piece of meat, then threw it to Broggy. Ahem, that little bit of meat is not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. At this time, Broggy, who had swallowed the meat, asked, did you bring any wine? I've been here for over 100 years, and I really want to drink. Zoro exclaimed, over 100 years. How old are you? Broggy laughed and said, I'm over 150 years old. Because it's been so long, I forgot exactly how old I am. Ah ha ha ha. Sanji couldn't help but ask, do all of you giants have such a long lifespan? Broggy Kaido, under normal circumstances, the average lifespan of a giant is about 3 times that of people like you. Luffy's eyes lit up, and he was about to say something when Lin Hai interrupted him, you guys are checking the household registration. Since old Broggy is so kind, let's have a party together. Plan. Before Lin Hai could finish his words, he was hit hard on the head. Lin Hai was furious. Who hit me? Nami put her hands on her hips and said, it's me, you better be polite, you old fool, be polite. Bragi waved his hand and smiled, it's okay, pirates should be bold and unrestrained. Besides, I'm much older than you guys, ha ha ha. Lin Hai took out a large barrel from the space and threw it to Bragi, saying, next. Bragi took the barrel and asked curiously, are you doing magic? Luffy smiled and explained, Lin Hai is a user with the ability to eat the devil fruit. Sanji, let's have a party. Sanji's eye twitched. A banquet, okay, but where's the food? Bragi was a man who understood the ways of the world. Seeing the situation on the Straw Hat cruise boat, he said generously, I'll treat you to a barbecue. I'll go hunt some game first, and then we'll have a banquet together. After that, Bragi pointed to a volcano not far away and said, how about we gather there later? Zoro cried, then let's go hunt some prey. Lin Hai turned around and said, Usopp, move all the wine on the boat over there, it's time to have a party. Luffy said excitedly, party, party, let's have a party. At this time, Vivi said, if we all go there, what about the boat? Lin Hai waved his hand and said, you guys go ahead, I'll stay and watch the boat, but you guys have to come back later and let me go, I still have to watch the dinosaurs. Although Lin Hai really wants to go now, let them go and gain some experience. How can they grow with Lin Hai around? At this time, Zoro said, then I'll leave it to you. I'll replace you when I come back later. The reason why Lin Hai chose to stay was because he suddenly got an inspiration, which was the use of the space barrier of the space fruit ability. From this realization, Lin Hai vaguely realized that his affinity for the space fruit had become a little higher. At this time, without opening up the space field, Lin Hai directly drew his knife and cut a few times in the air. It worked. I saw several brick-sized space barriers appear in front of Lin Hai. Lin Hai immediately jumped up with joy to try if he could stand on it. As Lin Hai expected, he could really stand on it, but after 5 seconds, the space barrier would disappear. For a moment, Lin Hai started playing happily, and then, unknowingly, Lin Hai was climbing up continuously as if he was climbing a ladder. When he came to his senses, he looked down and was shocked by the height. Nima. Sure enough, after Lin Hai was frightened by the height, he became confused and then was blown by the breeze and fell directly from the sky. After sitting up again, Lin Hai couldn't help but start thinking, if he didn't use a knife to cut and create a space barrier, what should he do? Because this move is definitely a great way to show off when the enemy is unaware of the situation. I just felt the connection between myself and the space, and I could only cut a little with a knife. If I didn't use a knife. Space barrier. Lin Hai felt the space field for a long time, and only then did he realize that he was actually a spaceman, just like Luffy was the rubber man and Katakuri was the glutinous rice man. When developed to a high level, they would all be extraordinary existences. Of course, the space fruit is the most bizarre. After a long time, Lin Hai finally realized a little bit of the truth. Without using a knife, Lin Hai was finally able to condense a brick-sized spatial barrier, but he couldn't condense much at a time, and he couldn't condense a larger range, after all, he had just learned it. Just when Lin Hai stood up and prepared to go surfing again, he realized that after all this time, this was very similar to Marine's moonwalk. Forget it, although they are similar, they are too pretentious. Moonwalk requires constant stepping on, but Lin Hai doesn't, right? At this moment, Lin Hai suddenly found that the sky was dark. When I looked up, I found that a huge dinosaur had mistaken me for food. This is outrageous. So, Lin Hai drew his sword, pointed it at the dinosaur and said, why are you looking for death instead of just squatting down on the ground and becoming a fossil? As he spoke, Lin Hai was ready to start, then he glared, and a powerful conqueror's haki enveloped the dinosaur. Lin Hai roared, one sword flow, brain chop, slay the dragon. Use conqueror's haki to stun the dinosaur first, then quickly chop it with a knife, no problem. Clang. Suddenly a white light flashed, and the sword energy passed through the dinosaur's neck, then dissipated in the distance. So, they were having a party, and Lin Hai himself came to host the party. Chapter 64. After eating and drinking his fill and resting for a while under a tree, Lin Hai suddenly realized something was wrong. Damn it, it's been such a long time, why hasn't Zoro come back to take over his shift? Lin Hai was suddenly shocked. Who is Zoro? Zoro is a person who doesn't even know how to get home. Lin Hai quickly released the observation haki to investigate the situation over there. Well, it was just like the original story. One of the two giants was ambushed, and the other was pinned to the ground by Mr. Three's candle ability. And Zoro, Nami, Sanji, and Vivi were going to be made into wax figures. What's interesting is that Luffy was still sitting there leisurely drinking tea with that little sister Mr. Golden Week. It seems that Luffy has been blessed with the special ability of Golden Week, which is the ability to control other people's emotions by mixing colors. Lin Hai couldn't sit still anymore and had to rush over to help them out. Who knew if they could escape the danger? Before this, MR5 didn't dare to be an enemy of Lin Hai at first, but this time it was different. With MR3's strategy and ability, he dared to attack Straw Hat Crew again. At the same time, it was also to get the bounty of the two giants, a full 200 million Baileys. After all, Mr. 5 also wants to atone for his sins and avoid being hunted down by the senior agents of Baroque Works, right? At this time, MR5 and Valentine were chasing after Usopp, who was riding fast. In another part of the jungle, there was a huge candlestick, on which stood Zoro and his companions, their feet fixed by candles, unable to move. Two giants were lying on the ground not far from the candlestick. The giant Dori has fallen into a coma because he drank the wine that Mr. 5 had planted a bomb in, and was seriously injured in the duel with Broggy. Seeing this, the giant Broggy, who was pinned to the ground by Mr. 3's candle power, could not help but secretly say, "These people are so despicable, they actually use such means." MR3 couldn't help but laugh and boast, "You idiots, everything depends on brain power, you know? We can beat you just by using our brains, why should we fight you head on? Baka." At this time, Sanji, who was sitting on the candlestick with his hands in his pockets, said, "Luffy has fallen for that Golden Week trick again, and we can't move. Is this the end? I didn't expect that we would lose here." Zoro raised his long sword and said, "I'm going to lose here? Since my feet can't move, I'll just chop them off. Anyway, I want to win." Nami exclaimed, "Are you crazy? If you cut off your own feet, how can you fight him afterwards? Lin Hai, come and save us, I don't want to die like this." Vivi was also very horrified and said, "I absolutely cannot die here, Alabasta is still waiting for me to return." "Lin Hai, what are you doing? Come and save us." Sanji pondered, "Isn't he sleeping on the boat like some idiot?" Nami was shocked. "Kaido, it's really possible. What should we do?" Looking at the people on the candlesticks, their terrified expressions gave MR3 a special kind of pleasure. He said excitedly, "Yo, that's it, that's it. Try to make a painful expression as much as possible. The expression of pain and struggle is the art I pursue. Freeze in fear." Nami said unhappily, "Don't be so proud too soon, pervert. When Lin Hai finds out about this, you'll be in trouble. He has a bad temper." Sanji nodded, "I agree with that." "Hey? What do you agree to?" At this time, Lin Hai put on a wig and wore a long robe. He also had a sword on his back. He looked independent and came from the sky. For a moment, Lin Hai's fairy-like outfit immediately attracted everyone's attention. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. The host will be rewarded with a copy of Basic Swordsmanship. Lin Hai in mid-air spat secretly. Who is the Fengxiao system looking down on? Basic Swordsmanship? Go and have fun right now. What could be more fun than pretending to be cool? After a while, Nami reacted and said happily, "Lin Hai, UBD finally came, come and save us." Vivi was so excited that she shed tears and said, "Lin Hai, you are finally here." Sanji spat inwardly in jealousy, pretending again. Zoro said speechlessly, "Stop pretending to be cool and destroy the rotating candlestick on it." MR3 was horrified when he saw Lin Hai could actually step into the air. How could you step into the air? What kind of monster are you?" After hearing what Mr. 3 said, Zoro and his friends realized that Lin Hai actually came from the air. "Hey, can the space fruit even do something like this? I don't know what method this guy Lin Hai used, but it's really scary." Nami and Vivi looked at Lin Hai like this and didn't know what to say. They were stunned. Luffy, who was drinking tea with Golden Week, wanted to say Sulgae loudly, but the emotion fruit made his thoughts completely reversed, and he was really uncomfortable. Huang Qianzhou looked up at Lin Hai blankly, forgetting what to say for a moment, and didn't even notice that the teacup in his hand had fallen to the ground. Looking at these people's reactions, Lin Hai expressed that he was very satisfied, and that his initial inspiration and hard training did not go to waste. At this time, Zoro saw Lin Hai still walking in the air, and he immediately said in displeasure, "Lin Hai, quickly chop down the rotating candlestick above, stop trying to be cool. These guys actually have the nerve to ask me to save them? MR3 and his gang can only be regarded as scum among the New World pirates, and they were completely wiped out." Thinking of this, Lin Hai said with a malicious smile, "Aren't you guys having a good chat there? Besides, how can I ruin Mr. 3's pursuit of art? Don't you think so? Mr. 3. Mr. 3 was afraid of the unknown, so he quickly used his special skill, which was to use his candle ability to create a huge candle robot. Lin Hai didn't plan to attack him first. It wouldn't be too late to attack him after he armed himself. At this moment, Lin Hai flashed and stood directly in front of Mr. Huang Jianzhou. Looking at the little sister sitting there wearing a hat, Lin Hai stretched out his hand and said, "This lovely little sister, how about being my daughter, or even my partner?" Mr. Huang Jianzhou finally reacted, and Kaido said with some fear, "Uncle, who are you? What do you want to do? Don't come over here." "Ha ha ha, this uncle." Sanji on the candlestick almost burst out laughing. Hey, I don't need to think about it to know that those bastards on the candlestick are laughing at me. Forget it, uncle is uncle." Lin Hai quickly adjusted his mentality and said again, "Little sister, there are many beautiful goldfish on my boat. Uncle will take you to see them, okay? Pucci." Ha ha ha. Sanji on the candlestick laughed so hard that tears came out. He really didn't expect that Lin Hai was so shameless that he actually tricked the little sister into going to see the goldfish. Pucci, cough cough cough. Zoro originally wanted to maintain his image, but after hearing Lin Hai's words, his defense finally broke down. Vivi and Nami on the side blushed at the same time. This stinky Lin Hai is so shameless. Chapter 65. Another laugh. Before crossing over, didn't the old masters use this trick to pick up girls? Is it so funny? Didn't you see that Lin Hai was inviting his friends? These guys. Lin Hai was immediately furious and said, "Straw Hat BD, what are you doing there? I came all the way here, don't you think you can make me a cup of tea?" Having said that, Lin Hai kicked Luffy away. At this time, Mr. 3 on the side had already finished his suit, and immediately laughed sinisterly, "You guys are too much of a jerk, aren't you? How dare you not take me seriously? Die! Iron Fist!" Mr. Golden Week was also planning to take action. Clang! A white light flashed, and Mr. 3's armor, which he thought was as hard as steel, cracked instantly, and then Mr. Huang Jianzhou was shocked. Lin Hai did not intend to really take Mr. 3's life. After all, according to the original work, he had a part in Luffy's escape from the underwater prison and the rescue of Ace. This kind of thing was a bit mysterious. But not taking his life doesn't mean not teaching him a lesson. Room. Zoro and his companions were instantly brought to Lin Hai's presence. At this time, Lin Hai's mood was dark, and he said angrily, "If you are unhappy, just take it out on him." Zoro and his friends originally wanted to settle accounts with Lin Hai, because it was so easy to save them, but that stinky Lin Hai had to wait until now to save them, causing them to suffer in vain. "But no matter how unhappy I am, the culprit who caused this incident is Mr. 3, so I'll give him a good beating first." Seeing the anger in their eyes, Mr. 3 said in horror, "What do you want to do? Don't come over here, or I will fight back." Sanji was the first to attack. "Okay, fight back." With that, Sanji kicked him. Mr. 3 quickly used his own defensive measures and waved his arm, wall of candles. Duan! Sanji felt a pain in his foot, as if he had kicked on steel. Zoro was speechless. This guy has this trick. What should I do now? Mr. 3 hid in the candle wall and said proudly, "Baga, the hardness of my candle wall is comparable to steel, you." Without waiting for Mr. 3 to continue to be proud, Lin Hai punched the candle wall directly, and the candle wall shattered instantly. Lin Hai directly picked up Mr. 3 and threw him aside, venting all his unhappiness on Mr. 3. Lin Hai pointed at Mr. 3 and said, "Brothers and sisters, beat him up." For a moment, Lin Hai, Zoro, Sanji, Nami and Vivi were stomping on Mr. 3 as much as they wanted. "I'll let you yo ho ho, I'll let you be proud, take my kick." "Artist? What kind of artist are you, that you want to make us into statues. UBD, you got a little too proud of yourself just now. Mr. 3 held his head with both hands and said, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I won't dare to do it again. If apologizing is useful, what do we need the police for? Pay us for the shock we just suffered. Please spare me. Aren't you awesome? Fight back, UBD. You want me to make a painful expression, right? To pursue art, right? To freeze us in fear, right? I don't know how long the fight lasted, but everyone's anger had almost subsided. They then realized that Mr. Goldenweek had already run away, and Luffy was looking at Lin Hai and the others in confusion. Lin Hai walked over angrily and wiped off the pattern on Luffy's back. Luffy immediately exhaled 2 streams of hot air through his nostrils. Where's that stinky woman? I'm going to go find her to settle the score. Ah! Zoro said, calm down, Luffy, let's get rid of the candles on Uncle Clocky first, and Uncle Dory. Cloaky, who was lying on the ground, suddenly started crying, because he thought Dory was dead. Lin Hai used his ability to get Cloaky out directly, and then said, don't worry, he is not dead, but fainted. Really? Cloaky asked excitedly. Lin Hai said unhappily, why don't you just probe his nostrils with your hand and find out? Not long after, the giant Dory woke up as Lin Hai said, and then the 2 grown men hugged each other and cried bitterly. Lin Hai on the side couldn't stand it anymore. What about the banquet? He, Lin Hai, had never participated in it before. So, Lin Hai said to Broggy and Dory, that's enough, you two, just cry for a while, why don't you stop crying? Broggy refused and said, what do you know? I'm just too happy, woohoo. FK. Broggy and Dory cried even harder, and then their tears fell on Lin Hai like a huge rock. Lin Hai was soaked without paying attention. Seeing this scene, the Straw Hat crew nearby couldn't help but chuckle. Lin Hai didn't expect that he would be beaten like this by someone else's tears. He immediately said in shame and anger, what are you laughing at? Where is the party? Didn't we agree to have a party? Nami stepped forward and said, why are we still holding a party? There is a riot going on in Vivi's country. We have to send her back quickly. We are only here to resupply. Lin Hai then realized that Nami was wearing a bikini with a coat on the outside, and the collar of the coat had not been pulled up. These are not the point is that there is a red dot on Nami's lower abdomen. Lin Hai then remembered that Nami was infected with the virus. Lin Hai pointed at Nami's belly and asked in shock, what bit you here? Nami glanced at her belly and said nonchalantly, it's okay, just a bug bite. Just a bug bite? If I remember correctly, Nami was infected with a rare virus in this primitive jungle, and it seems that she will not survive for more than 6 days. Because on the 5th day, she will die. Lin Hai said quickly, then let's quickly prepare the supplies and get ready to set sail. At this time, Dory had stopped crying and lowered his head to ask, didn't you say you wanted to have a party? Are we going to set sail now? Lin Hai nodded and pointed at Nami and said, it seems that the navigator on our ship has been infected with some kind of virus. We have to take her to see a doctor immediately. Some kind of virus, everyone shouted. Nami said with a smile, are you making a big deal out of it? I was just bitten by a mosquito. Sanji asked, Lin Hai, are you cursing Nami? Luffy asked in confusion, what is a virus? Vivi was surprised and asked, have you never been sick? Usopp, Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy all shook their heads, we've never been sick. Nami and Vivi exclaimed, what kind of monsters are you? At this time, Broggy said, I think Lin Hai is right, you should go see a doctor first. It would be best if nothing happens. What if you have a virus? Nami didn't care at first, but after hearing what everyone said, she suddenly became scared. Chapter 66. Nami was scared for a while, but soon recovered and waved her hands and said with a smile, where do so many viruses come from? Let's prepare the food and go to Alabasta. Vivi looked at Nami with some concern, and Nami said with a smile, how could such a small probability thing happen to me? Don't you think so, Vivi? Lin Hai couldn't help but say, this is a primitive jungle, rare viruses. Nami immediately got angry and asked, will you die if you don't speak? Lin Hai quickly hid behind Zoro Kaido, I won't, but you probably will. Nami's face darkened. Zoro saw that something was wrong and quickly said, can you please stop hiding behind me? At this time, Dory said, you just saved us, so let us help you too. Luffy asked in confusion, help us. Froggy explained, there is a big thing hiding near the sea here, and usually the ships passing by are swallowed by it. Dory echoed, but don't worry, we have our help, just keep moving forward and don't worry about what's in front of you. Froggy nodded and said, leave it to us. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, no need, I'll do it. If it dares to swallow our boat, I'll chop it up. Usopp exclaimed, Lin Hai, why are you chopping things again? Can you stop being so scary? Zoro smiled and said, I'd really like to see Lin Hai perform that move. Nami said angrily, why are you cutting it? Every time Lin Hai messes up the ocean currents, isn't this causing trouble for us? Froggy asked doubtfully, that thing is really dangerous, you really don't need our help. Dory echoed, we have received your kindness, and we want to repay you. Luffy smiled and said, don't worry about it. Since Lin Hai said no, then no. He, what kind of adventure will we have in the next place? I'm really looking forward to it. Then Lin Hai, Luffy and Usopp put their arms around each other and shouted adventure, adventure. Done. X3 Nami crossed her arms and said, really? Hurry up and move the food to the boat. Lin Hai was really angry. In front of so many people, he was so disrespectful every day. So, Lin Hai whispered, this stinky woman, sooner or later I will get you pregnant. Nami blushed, but still said, Lin Hai, what are you talking about? Speak louder. Tisk, did he really think that Lin Hai was stupid? Nami must want to beat him up again. Soon, all the Straw Hat crew members were on the Mary. After waving goodbye to Dory and Froggy, the Mary had just sailed a short distance when a huge crab-like creature appeared in front. This creature is more than twice as big as the giants Dory and Froggy combined. Dory on the shore asked anxiously, are they really okay? Froggy cried, let's just believe them. I don't think Luffy is a liar, and I think the one called Lin Hai is very strong. Seeing that his good friend said this, Dory had no choice but to wait and see how the situation developed. Although the two said they would trust the Straw Hat crew, they were just like ants in front of that giant creature. How could people not be worried? At this time, on the Mary, upon seeing such a large creature, Nami and Vivi hugged each other and burst into tears. What on earth is that? Help! We are going to be eaten. Usopp hid behind Zoro in fear and said in horror, Zoro, we are going to be eaten, think of a solution quickly. Zoro was speechless, it's such a big thing, there's nothing I can do with it. Luffy put one hand to his brow, shading it from the sun, and exclaimed at the huge crab-like creature, it's so big, is it a crab? Sanji said blankly, if this is made into food, I really don't know how to start. Sanji reacted and turned around quickly. When he was about to ask what to do, Lin Hai had already started. At this time, Lin Hai got into position and then activated Gaofeng's summoning form. I saw that a space Uzumaki appeared again from the left side of Lin Hai, and a double-edged sword that amazed everyone came out of Uzumaki. Lin Hai holds the handle. Room. Armament haki hardens. Instantly, everyone could see a black gas coming out from Lin Hai's arm and spreading to Gaofeng in summoning form. Lin Hai opened his eyes and shouted loudly, Demacia. Clang. A magical word full of haki and the clear and pleasant sound of swords shocked the cognition of everyone present. The sound was deafening, just like Pangu creating the world. At this moment, everyone seemed to feel that the sky had darkened. It turned out that the light from Lin Hai's sword was too dazzling, giving people the illusion that the sky had become dim. What shocked everyone even more was that at this moment, the crab-like creatures that were as big as several mountains were directly split into two by Lin Hai. It turned out that Lin Hai just chopped it horizontally. Lin Hai is not stupid. If he splits vertically again, he will inevitably split the sea, which will cause turbulence and carry the ship in. At this moment, everyone was so shocked by the scene that they were speechless. It was rare that Luffy was so frightened by Lin Hai's sword that he couldn't close his mouth, and several drops of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Although the creature in front of him was dealt with, the upper half of the flying creature, which was as big as several mountains, would fall down due to gravity. Lin Hai spat inwardly, he had miscalculated. It turned out that although the horizontal chop could avoid turbulence, the objects that fell down would still cause turbulence. Lin Hai quickly turned around and woke up the dazed Nami. Nami, hurry up and give orders, that thing will fall, even if it doesn't hit us, it will create a huge wave. Nami exclaimed, everyone, don't just stand there, hurry up and work. After a long time, the sea level finally calmed down. Broggy on the side tried to hold back his laughter and said, "Why don't you guys take a rest and set sail later?" That's right, when the upper half of the crab-like creature fell into the sea, it caused waves on the sea surface. The Mary had to sail back to the shore and wait for the sea level to calm down again before setting sail. Everyone was really frightened by Lin Hai's action. First, they saw several mountain-sized objects being chopped up and flying, and then they saw the mountain-like objects falling down. Sanji grabbed Lin Hai by the collar and said angrily, "Can you stop being so scary, BD? I thought I was going to be smashed to death just now." Nami punched Lin Hai on the head and complained, "Is this what you mean by not messing around? Tell me what kind of monster you are. How did you cut off something that big?" Lin Hai said angrily, "You are so noisy, who knew that thing was so fragile, I feel like I haven't done my best." Lin Hai's tone of voice was so irritating, so he was beaten up again. "FK, you hit me again. We are partners. Who hit me in the face again?" Dory and Broggy on the side looked at each other. Didn't they have something to do and were in a hurry to set sail? What are they doing now? Ouch. Be more mature, please. Chapter 67. After saying goodbye to Dory and Broggy again, the Mary was already sailing on the vast ocean. So, now comes the question. Lin Hai insisted on seeing a doctor, Nami insisted on opposing, and Vivi was struggling on the side. Because Vivi just read the newspaper Nami gave her. At this time, Vivi said with great concern, "Everyone, originally the king's army had 700,000 soldiers against 400,000 rebels, but unexpectedly 300,000 of the king's army turned against them. Now the situation has been reversed in an instant." Nami comforted him, "Vivi, don't worry too much. We will go to Alabasta as quickly as possible to expose Crocodile's true identity to the public. In this way, this war can be avoided, right?" Vivi nodded and said, "Thank you." Luffy on the side said, "Let's go defeat Crocodile." Nami raised her eyebrows and said angrily, "You have said it many times. If you say it again, I will throw you into the sea." At this time, Lin Hai couldn't help but sneer, "I say, are you too naive? That was a battle involving millions of people. Since it was a battle, there must have been huge conflicts. Do you really think that it can be avoided with just a few words from Vivi?" Vivi said excitedly, "Am I not going to do anything?" Lin Hai asked, "Do you have evidence that Crocodile is behind this? Even if you do, you can't stop it." Vivi retorted, "Impossible. As long as I tell my father and the rebel leader Kosa the information and evidence I have collected, they will definitely stop the unrest." Lin Hai said with a smile, "You are too naive, aren't you? What kind of contradictions and misunderstandings would lead to a confrontation between millions of troops? Let's not talk about this for now. Let's assume that you told your father about Crocodile's plot, but Kosa didn't know about it. What would happen if they met on the battlefield?" Sanji said tentatively, "We are already the minority, and because of our indecision, will this battle become one-sided?" Vivi was shocked, but still said, "I will definitely meet Kosa and will never let this happen." Haha. Lin Hai was about to say something, but Sanji said unhappily, "Lin Hai, be gentle to ladies. If you have anything to say, just talk to them nicely." "Got it." Lin Hai slapped his forehead and said speechlessly, "I was mad at them. Think about it, even if Cao Shan knew, what if he didn't appear on the battlefield or he was killed? Guess what would be the result?" Also, when Vivi heard what was going to happen in Alabasta, she thought too naively. Can a war be resolved with just a few words? Vivi said angrily, "According to what you said, everything I did was meaningless." Nami rolled her eyes at Lin Hai and consoled him, "He actually wanted to persuade you to give up and go back to Alabasta so that we can find a doctor first." Lin Hai felt his mind was a little confused. After taking a deep breath, Lin Hai said calmly, "Because the mastermind behind this incident is Crocodile, he has been planning for so long, he must have a thorough plan. So you went back rashly like this and fell directly into his plan. I say this just to tell you that you should think these things through before you go back. Don't let yourself get hurt while you fail to save others." Vivi calmed down, thought for a while and then said, "So what do you think we should do?" Luffy said, "Why don't we just go and defeat Crocodile?" Zoro said, "Defeat him, but the matter over at Alabasta has not been resolved yet. Usopp Kaido, so, we have to split up, with some going to find Crocodile and the others going to stop the civil unrest in Alabasta." Lin Hai nodded and said, "It is indeed safe to do so, but there are many senior codders in the Baroque studio. They may be lurking in Alabasta. How to allocate them? Luffy said, leave the crocodile to me. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, crocodile is a sand fruit user, Logia devil fruit, and you are the only one who doesn't know haki, what are you going to do? Let me go, I'll chop him up with one knife. Usopp exclaimed, Lin Hai, can you please stop slashing people all the time? Lin Hai was speechless, we are his enemy. If I don't kill him, should I treat him to a meal? At this time Nami said, then this matter is decided. We will set off for Alabasta first, and then separate our actions after landing. Vivi said gratefully, this matter originally had nothing to do with you, but you were involved. Lin Hai said indifferently, you're welcome, these are all things that will happen after we get ashore. After that, Lin Hai pointed at Nami and said, the most important thing right now is to find a doctor. Nami, you are sick and need treatment. Plan. Nami punched and Sanji kicked Lin Hai. Sanji said, UBD, you're cursing Miss Nami again. Nami was speechless, I said I didn't, it's okay. Before she could finish her words, Nami suddenly felt the surroundings spinning and then fell down. Seeing this, Vivi quickly helped Nami up. Everyone else looked at Lin Hai in surprise. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, did I say something wrong? What a bunch of bastards. Usopp said in horror, Lin Fan, it turns out you really can curse. Luffy exclaimed, oh no, Nami has been cursed by Lin Hai. Nami, are you okay? Don't die. Lin Hai was speechless, didn't you notice that Nami had an abnormal wound on his abdomen? As she spoke, Lin Hai pulled up Nami's shirt, and saw some black spots on Nami's abdomen. Lin Hai pointed there and said, see? Nami must have been infected with some kind of virus. Let's go find a doctor right away. No way, it's just as Lin Hai said, it really came true. Nami is not going to die just like that, is she? No, Nami, we need you, please don't leave us. Vivi said angrily, all of you be quiet, help Nami go back and rest first. Nami said weakly, wait, the wind is a bit unusual, turn left quickly. Sanji cried, leave it to me. As they were helping Nami in to rest, everyone looked towards the sea level in the distance in horror. I saw a tornado with a diameter of nearly 700 meters. This scene shook everyone's nerves severely, and after they calmed down, everyone couldn't help but look at Nami, and they really admired her. If it was a few seconds later, the consequences would be disastrous. At this time, Usopp noticed that Lin Hai was in a fighting stance, so he asked, Lin Hai, what are you doing? Lin Hai said unhappily, that tornado just now actually wanted to kill us, I want to chop it down. Duan. Lin Hai was beaten up again. You're chopping again, why do you always like to chop? Please stop chopping. UBD, do you think the current is not strong enough? If you chop us again, we will really be in a shipwreck. At this time, Zoro asked, Nami, please tell me the direction we are sailing, and then go and have a good rest. Nami said weakly to Kaido, just sail in this direction, and if there is any change in the weather, let me know. Lin Hai stopped Usopp and the others from doing what they were doing, stood up and asked, Nami, are you still planning to go directly to Alabasta? Let's go find a doctor first. Chapter 68. After Lin Hai's repeated reminders, everyone understood one thing, if Nami's illness was not cured first, then everyone would have to drift aimlessly on the sea on the Mary. I can't even imagine another storm. So everyone agreed to go find a doctor first, which was Magnetic Drum Island in the nearby sea. After arranging Nami, Vivi stayed to take care of her, while everyone else ran into the kitchen to eat, except Lin Hai who was on the deck and Zoro who was taking a nap. Lin Hai, who was sitting on the deck, discovered a problem. Why couldn't he be kinder to others like Luffy and the others? Ahem, this is a problem. It seems there is still a long way to go. Bored Lin Hai leaned on the railing and started playing the space barrier expansion training. What if I shrink it and use it as a bullet? I can't point and shoot, and it's not like Kizaru's flash fruit, so forget about that. After all, there is also observation haki, which seems a bit impractical. So how to develop it? Attack, dodge, and escape, let's develop these three aspects first. Combine spatial ability with attack methods, combine physical skills with spatial ability, and escape, then you rely on developing the space fruit. Lin Hai didn't intend to waste time thinking about those fancy moves. Because you have so many moves, and each move seems very powerful, but if you are not a grandmaster, when you meet a master, they will be useless. Isn't this just deceiving yourself and wasting time? Lin Hai suddenly realized that he thought he didn't have to study anymore, but it turned out that he not only had to use his brain, but also exercise his body. At this moment, Sanji came out of the kitchen and saw Lin Hai playing with those transparent objects. He couldn't help but ask, "You stepped into the air last time, didn't you use those things to stay?" Lin Hai nodded and said, "Yeah, want to go up and play?" Sanji clearly sensed the full malice in Lin Hai's eyes, and quickly waved his hand and said, "No, they are all eating, if you don't go." Before he finished speaking, he saw Lin Hai holding the dinosaur meat he brought out from Little Garden, and he immediately exclaimed, "Isn't your space fruit too pervert? But how long can the food last in your space?" Lin Hai ate and said, "It won't go bad." At this time, Vivi came out of Nami's room and shouted, "Oh no, everyone, Nami has a fever of 40 degrees. Sanji was immediately horrified and asked, "What did you say?" At one point, everyone ran into Nami's room. Luffy said worriedly, "Nami, wake up, don't die." Sanji said with tears in his eyes, "Ms. Nami, how could you be sick? I always give you the best part of the food, and give them all the bad ones." Everyone's face turned dark. What a beast. Seeing the noise in the room, Nami couldn't help but sit up and said weakly, "I'm fine, I either have heat stroke or the thermometer is broken, how can a person have a fever of 40 degrees? By the way, is the direction of the ship's sailing okay?" Vivi cried, "No problem, we will arrive at Drum Island tomorrow, Nami, you have to hold on." At this time, Lin Hai stepped forward and took Nami's pulse. Everyone's eyes suddenly showed joy. Lin Hai also knows medical skills. Zoro couldn't help but ask, "Lin Hai, can you also take the pulse?" Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, "Lin Hai, you're so powerful." Usopp exclaimed, "Lin Hai has nothing but advantages except for his shortcomings." Seeing Lin Hai's serious look, Sanji stepped forward and asked, "Did you see anything?" Vivi said happily, "If it can be cured, can we not go to Drum Island?" Lin Hai said unhappily, "Can you guys be quiet? I just want to see how Nami's pulse is different from ours. I know medical skills. Go play somewhere else." Everyone's face darkened. Sanji was furious, "UBD, you don't know how to treat a disease, and why don't you let go of Nami's hand?" Lin Hai ignored the people around him and said to Nami, "Nami, you should lie down and have a good rest. I'll let Wai Wei get some warm water to wipe your body. This will cool you down and make you feel better." Nami weakly cried, "Thank you, please Vivi." Vivi shook her head and said, "Why are you being so polite to me?" Others were full of doubts at this time. Would doing that really reduce the fever? At this time, Lin Hai stood up and hugged Vivi's waist. In the confused eyes of everyone, Lin Hai said gently, "Princess Vivi, let's ignore them. I will take you to see the goldfish, okay?" Nami, who had just laid down, found that her face was getting even hotter. Vivi was stunned for a moment, and then a blush visibly crept up her cheeks and spread to her ears. Sanji glared at Lin Hai and roared like a beast. Zoro slapped his forehead, wondering why there was such a thing on his ship. "Ha ha ha." Luffy pointed at Lin Hai and laughed, "Lin Hai, you are so funny." At this time, Vivi said to Kaido uncomfortably, "Well, can you let me go? I need to get some water to wipe Nami's body." "Yet." Lin Hai let go and pointed at everyone and said, "What are you doing in the room? Do you know any medical skills? Get out of here and don't get in the way, tisk." Several people looked at Lin Hai's back, and then looked at each other. Lin Hai, who had just arrived at the deck, was lying on the deck to continue studying the space fruit when he saw a group of people pressing on him. Lin Hai exclaimed, "What do you want to do?" "What? Beat you up? Isn't Lin Hai the guy who cares most about his hairstyle? Let's make him a new one." "UBD, not only did you shake Nami's hand, you even dared to put your arm around Princess Vivi's waist. I'm going to fight you." Lin Hai refused to beg for mercy and said, "You guys, remember this. Ah, I know I was wrong." After everyone was arguing for a while, it suddenly started snowing. Luffy was immediately surprised and said, "Lin Hai, quickly take out that sweet thing you brought last time, and let's eat ice cream again." Usopp said, "Not yet. There's not enough snow to make it." Lin Hai glared at everyone, then took out his fishing rod and started fishing. Luffy and Usopp looked at each other. Will we have fish to eat later? That's better than ice cream. However, after a long while, Luffy said in confusion, Lin Hai, you are so lame today. I caught a lot of fish, but you didn't catch any. Lin Hai said in a profound and mysterious way, what do you know? I am comprehending the rhyme of Taoism. Tao rhyme? It sounds like a beagle. Everyone looked at Lin Hai curiously. Zoro didn't sleep either. He walked to Lin Hai curiously and asked, can you tell me in detail? Chapter 69. What? Should he tell them that Lin Hai himself was just wondering why Vivi's skin was so much whiter than Nami's? But the ratio has already been assembled, how can we make it round? Ahem. Lin Hai adjusted his posture, then looked into the distance in an unfathomable manner and said, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Although Luffy and Usopp didn't understand what Lin Hai was saying, they seemed to have a sense of authority. Silk cake. There's more, keep talking. Lin Hai was very confused. When he was studying in school, he only remembered this sentence from an article about Tao. What did it say afterwards? Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind, and Lin Hai suddenly became energetic. Ahem. Lin Hai continued, actually, if I explain it in a profound way, you won't understand, so I'll explain it in a simple and easy to understand way. That is, sit here and feel the subtle changes in the environment, so as to understand the laws governing the operation of all things. At this time, Sanji came over with a cigarette in his mouth and said with a smile, you said the same thing as not saying anything, right? Damn it, Sanji is forcing himself to use his ultimate move. So, Lin Hai continued to look into the distance, biting a cigarette, and then slowly said, absolute movement and relative stillness show that movement is irreversible. Time is just a conceptual expression of movement. In other words, if you want to go back to the past. At this point, Lin Hai couldn't go on. He originally wanted to say that going back to the past was impossible, but in this world, if he, Lin Hai, guessed correctly, there was a time fruit, right? It's really speechless. When everyone heard this, they saw why Lin Hai stopped talking, and Zoro, who was very curious, asked, what happened next? Ahem. Lin Hai said, what else can we do? Living in the present is the most real thing. Everything else is just floating clouds. That's it. That's it. Everyone snorted and walked away. Just as everyone was leaving, the Feng Shao system suddenly said, ding, congratulations to the host for having understood the rules. The backpack space is open to the host. Only the host can enter and exit this space freely. Free entry and exit. A place for desperate escape? Another nonsense. Suddenly, Lin Hai, who was overjoyed, lost his balance and fell directly from the railing. Nima. Plop. Several people not far away saw Lin Hai suddenly fall into the sea and were confused. Luffy asked in confusion, the scream just now was from Lin Hai, right? Sanji took a deep puff of his cigarette and asked, is it because we just looked down on him that he couldn't bear it and jumped into the sea? Usopp said, Lin Hai, he shouldn't be that fragile, right? Zoro said speechlessly, stop talking, go and see if he's okay. At this time, there were a few fish in the sea, which had just been biting the bait on the fishing rod in Lin Hai's hand, but they could not bite it no matter how hard they tried, and the culprit had now fallen into the sea. Then, all the fish swam over and prepared to slap Lin Hai with their tails in revenge for playing tricks on them just now. That's right, just now, when Lin Hai was fishing, he was practicing his observation haki and was teasing the fish with the fishing rod in his hand. At this time, Lin Hai, who fell into the sea, saw that these fish dared to come and provoke him, so Lin Hai raised his middle finger at them. Although the fish didn't understand what that meant, they could somehow feel that the humans in front of them were insulting them. Then, a group of fish rushed over, ready to beat Lin Hai. Fortunately, Lin Hai was changing himself and was determined not to kill indiscriminately. He quickly adjusted his mentality, and then Lin Hai made a face at the school of fish. As a result, the fish were irritated. I saw a man swimming quickly on the snowy sea, near Going Merry, with a school of fish chasing behind him. Luffy on the boat looked at the scene with shining eyes and exclaimed, I really want to go swimming with Lin Hai, but it's a pity that I can't swim. Hey, let's play this game too. UBD, are you boring? Sanji kicked Luffy, then turned to Zoro with a confused look on his face, what is Lin Hai doing? Zoro was speechless. Are you an idiot? Lin Hai is being chased by a school of fish. The Usopp group nodded thoughtfully. Lin Hai is sometimes more troublesome than Luffy. Does he even beat up fish? Luffy stood at the railing and said excitedly, stupid fish, you can't catch up with Lin Hai, ha ha ha. Lin Hai, who was swimming in the sea, turned to look at Luffy, kaido, of course, I'm the swimming champion. You stinky fish, you haven't eaten yet, come chase me, ha ha ha. Fish, this human is so despicable, it really makes me mad. Why can't we fish outswim this human? Is he a fishman? That shouldn't be the case. He doesn't have the characteristics of a fish. Whatever, let's catch up with him first. At this time, Zoro on the boat heard the champion mentioned by Lin Hai and was about to take off his clothes to compete with Lin Hai, but was stopped by Sanji. Sanji was so exhausted that he could only yell angrily, are you still going down? Don't cause any more trouble, please. Really? After being chased by a school of fish in the sea for a long time, Lin Hai used his ability to return to the boat. At the railing, Lin Hai found that the school of fish was still gathered under the boat, staring at him hungrily. Then, Lin Hai mocked the fish again, singing and dancing, la 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 di Meisha, la la la, lua lua. At one point, Luffy and Usopp started singing and dancing along with Lin Hai. This scene made Sanji and Zoro's eyes twitch. After singing for a while, Lin Hai unzipped his pants and released water towards the school of fish. Fish school, what is he going to do? I don't know. Hey? What is that? Oh no, is this a gun? I've seen humans use guns, but this. Disperse quickly. At this moment, Vivi, who happened to be passing by, saw this scene and immediately screamed, which frightened Lin Hai. Then, Lin Hai fell into the sea again. Fortunately, Lin Hai's ability was useful. When he just sat back on the deck, Vivi blushed and came forward and asked, are you okay? Lin Hai waved his hand and said, what can I do? Feeling as if her face was covered with water, Lin Hai pulled Vivi's skirt to wipe her face. Vivi immediately covered her skirt and screamed again, while Sanji on the side turned into a beast and roared. Lin Hai said depressedly, I say, Vivi, as a princess of a country, you should be calm and composed, can you not be so startled? Vivi was speechless, aren't you cold in your short sleeves? It's snowing now. After hearing Vivi's words, Luffy and Usopp shuddered. Hiss, it's so cold. X2 Sanji exclaimed, are you just realizing this now? Lin Hai, who was sitting on the ground, just felt a little cold. Now that Vivi reminded him, he immediately said, cold? It's really a bit cold. Sanji turned around and exclaimed, so you just realized it too. After walking a few steps forward, Lin Hai suddenly remembered where the school of fish he had just teased was. Lin Hai immediately exclaimed, stinky fish, don't run, I haven't had enough fun yet. Sanji exclaimed again, you are an idiot. Chapter 70. The next day, the Mary finally arrived near Magnetic Drum Island, but unexpectedly, it was surrounded by many ships. Because of Lin Hai's reminder, everyone noticed the current situation. I saw a man standing on a boat not far away, whose height was almost as wide as his body. He was holding a knife with barbecue stuck on it. He was eating and then swallowed the knife. Lin Hai on the Mary turned to look at Luffy, Luffy, that guy is even more greedy than you. Luffy exclaimed, is that guy a monster? He even eats knives. At this time, Wapol said, Muhaha, are those pirates in front? I am King Wapol of Magnetic Drum Island, and now your ship is mine. Ah, I'm so hungry. Luffy protested, don't. Seeing Wapol about to take action, Lin Hai quickly said, wait. Lin Hai quietly winked at everyone, then turned to Wapol and said, Dear King Wapol, I am your loyal follower. You are hungry, right? Can I treat you to a delicious meal? Luffy said with disgust, Lin Hai, what is he doing? He is a loyal follower of that annoying guy? Is this true? Sanji said to Luffy, don't be stupid, let's see what this guy Lin Hai wants to do first. Wapol was originally waiting for the other party to object, and then jump directly onto the Mary and eat their ship, but suddenly someone came in front of him and said that he was his loyal follower and wanted to follow him, and also said that he would treat him to a meal. Thinking of this, Wapol wanted to see what the person in front of him was trying to do. Wapol said, please treat me to food. Lin Hai nodded and said, yes, I have heard of you before. You can swallow the sun and the moon, right? Nani, the Straw Hat crew exclaimed. And Luffy asked with shining eyes, really? Swallow the sun and the moon. Can you show it to us? Zoro speechlessly grabbed Luffy and said, that's enough, how could this happen? At this time, Wapol was stunned after hearing Lin Hai's words, and then laughed, muhaha, swallow the sun and the moon, swallow everything? Your description is very appropriate, I will allow you to be my follower. By the way, what are you going to treat me to? I'm just hungry, muhaha. Lin Hai said, yes, King Wapol, all you have to do is look up at the sky and open your mouth, and food will come right to you. Muhaha. Wapol asked doubtfully, is this really possible? That being said, Wapol has already done just that. Room. Suddenly, a barrel appeared above Wapol, and this barrel was very interesting. How to say it? Usopp looked at the barrel and said, why does that barrel seem so familiar to me? Zoro also sighed, I also feel strangely familiar. Sanji then remembered and exclaimed, isn't that our toilet? Could it be? Everyone vaguely guessed what Lin Hai was going to do, and they all shuddered. However, although Wapol heard these words, he had already swallowed the entire barrel. Then, his face began to twist. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. As a reward, the host's behavior has a certain chance of disgusting the opponent. It doesn't matter what the reward is, the most important thing at this moment is to be happy. Pa. After seeing Wapol swallow the wooden barrel, Lin Hai clapped his hands. Lin Hai clapped his hands and exclaimed, Wapol, you are amazing. You are amazing. You are truly the one who can swallow anything. There is no one like you before and there will be no one like you after. Luffy pointed at Wapol with a horrified look on his face and said, that guy ate all the food we had at night. He's really powerful. Ugh. Ugh. Everyone felt sick. Wapol stared at Lin Hai with a gloomy face and said, boy, you are finished. Before he could finish his words, Wapol was kicked away by Lin Hai. Then everyone's ears were still filled with Wapol's voice, I will come back again, yes. Lin Hai returned to his boat and saw that everyone was looking at him stupidly. Lin Hai said speechlessly, my temper has improved now. I didn't chop him. Why are you looking at me like that? Sanji exclaimed, is that the point? You're being more cruel than just chopping him up. Usopp nodded and said, Lin Hai, you still need to change your temper. We have no grudges against them. Luffy chimed in, Lin Hai, please stop messing around, okay? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, what's going on with you? We are pirates. Do I need to see if he is a good person before I beat him up? This is really inexplicable, tisk. At this time, Vivi stepped forward and explained, everyone, if Lin Hai hadn't beaten him away just now, he would have eaten our boat. Eat our ship. X3 Vivi nodded and said, Wapol is a user of the swallow ability. Also, I heard that Wapol was attacked by a group of pirates some time ago, and then Wapol fled the country with his army. He should have come back and met us on the way. Ahaha. Luffy laughed immediately, so that's how it is, Lin Hai, you really are a good person. Sanji pondered, speaking of which, what are we going to do with the toilet tonight? Lin Hai raised his eyebrows and said, why don't you go find Wapol and ask for it back? Zoro laughed and said, Lin Hai, you also kick him to Wapol. Before Zoro could finish, Sanji said, what did you say, a hole? Zoro retorted, want to fight? Lin Hai was speechless, everyone, it's important to find a doctor for Nami, please be more mature, okay? You are the least qualified to say this, everyone retorted. Soon, the Mary sailed into the coast of Magnetic Drum Island. Looking at the people on the icebergs on both sides, they all had expressions of disgust, which made everyone on the Mary nervous. Pirates, are you sent back by that rubbish of Valder? Pirates, get out of this country, you are not welcome here. Yes, you pirates are the worst garbage in the world, get out of here. Luffy on the Mary wondered, why do they hate us so much? It seems that Blackbeard attacked here once, and then Wapol messed around in this country, and then Wapol abandoned the people and went to sea to become a pirate. But this has nothing to do with Lin Hai, but when he thinks of Nami on the boat, he can't use force. Although Lin Hai really wants to kill him with a knife, who will take them to see a doctor after that? Even if they find one, will the doctor still save them? This risk cannot be taken. At this time, Luffy said, although we are pirates, we have no ill will towards you. One of my companions is sick. Bang! Get out, there's no doctor here. Yes, the doctors were taken away by Wapol. There is really no way to communicate. Chapter 71. Bang! A burst of gunfire rang out, and the coast suddenly became quiet. Luffy and the others were also worried. At this time, the bullet was shot at Princess Vivi. However, Princess Vivi was not injured because the bullet was not far from her and was blocked by Lin Hai. At this time, Lin Hai held a bullet in his hand and said slowly, "In the world of martial arts, only speed cannot be broken." Bah! If I remember correctly, this place was attacked by pirates many times, and people did not allow the pirates to land, which was not wrong. The Straw Hat crew did not understand, except Lin Hai, who read the original novel and understood the reason. The problem now is that the residents of the drum reject the pirates and won't let them land. If Lin Hai was a resident here, if the pirates wanted to forcibly land him, or use force to force the pirates to receive medical treatment, the result would be obvious: it would be impossible. It seems that forcing things doesn't work anymore. Thinking of this, Lin Hai glanced at the shore. The sky was vast and white, and it was impossible to tell where Chopper and the others were. Nami should have been infected with a rare virus. Ordinary doctors could not save her, and time was running out. If I don't write these reasons, some people will criticize the author for being toxic. If I write them, some people will criticize the author for being water. Please spare me. Based on this, for Nami, Lin Hai suppressed the burning shame on his face, but still put on a kind smile and looked at the shocked people and said, "Everyone, let's talk it over. This bullet is very dangerous. We have no ill intentions." Seeing that those people still didn't trust him, Lin Hai had no choice but to show his sincerity and shamelessly kneel down and say, "My partner is sick, she may die at any time." After saying that, Lin Hai immediately burst into tears. "Wee, please let us take her to see a doctor." "Ahem, why are you crying just like that? Where are the tears? Hey, where are the tears?" At this time, Vivi whispered a few words in Luffy's ear, then knelt down and begged, "We are not going to the island, we are just taking the patient to see a doctor, please." Luffy, who understood the situation, knelt down and said, "My friend is seriously ill. If we delay any longer, she will probably die. Please let her get treated. Please." At this time, a man walked out from the crowd. He was the former captain of the Magnetic Drum Island Guard and now the leader of the residents of Magnetic Drum Island. His name was Dalton. Dalton stepped forward and said, "Okay, you guys can go ashore." Lin Hai suddenly remembered that Dalton recognized Princess Vivi. So, everything Lin Hai did just now was in vain? Forget it, let's save Nami first. Because Dalton acted as a guarantor and Vivi was the princess of Alabasta, the local residents allowed the Straw Hat crew to go ashore. Lin Hai was very suspicious. He had just knelt for nothing. It was really absurd. In a room, Dalton said, "All the doctors here have been taken away by the tyrant Wapol. There is only one left. She lives over there, which is nearly 4,000 meters above sea level." "You?" Following Dalton's gaze, Luffy said, "Is that so? Then we can only take Nami to her for treatment." Dalton said, "Then you better be careful, there is also the brutal Labang on the snowy mountain, and." Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Thank you for reminding me. Nami's illness cannot be delayed. I have to take her there immediately." Vivi asked, "Who will take Nami?" Lin Hai said, "Of course it's me." Luffy said, "I'll go with you." Faced with the issue of Nami's life and death, Sanji didn't dare to make a fuss anymore. Finally, Lin Hai carried Nami on his back, and everyone used ropes to tie Nami to Lin Hai's back. At this time, the weak Nami asked weakly, "Excuse me." Lin Hai said with a smile, "What are you talking about?" After that, Lin Hai said to Luffy beside him, "Let's go." Because Nami went for treatment a day earlier than in the original story, she was not that seriously ill and was still able to speak. In the original novel, Kulha would go to the residents for medical treatment, but now it is different. Even if Lin Hai remembered so many details, he would not dare to wait in vain. "Don't argue." Watching Luffy and Lin Hai walk away, Vivi couldn't help but ask with some concern, "Are they really okay?" Sanji sighed, "Don't worry, although they are usually unreliable, they are still very reliable when it comes to serious matters." Usopp nodded and said, "We know how strong Lin Hai is." "Vivi, don't worry." Vivi nodded and said, yet. On the snowy slope, Lin Hai and Luffy were running. Lin Hai said with a smile, Luffy, if we encounter a gang later, you must protect us. Luffy smiled and said, no problem, leave it to me. So, is that where we are going? Lin Hai looked at the towering mountains in front of him and was speechless. Lin Hai nodded and said, yeah, I don't know how long it will take. The environment here is too harsh. Muhaha. Just then, Wapol, riding a hairy hippo, caught up. Wapol shouted arrogantly, two bastards in front, stop right there. Lin Hai and Luffy looked at each other, and Luffy asked, who is he? Lin Hai shook his head and looked at Wapol and asked, who are you, idiot? Wapol said angrily, how dare you? I am the king of this country. I now sentence you to death. Luffy asked in confusion, why? Wapol cried, that guy carrying a woman on his back just fed me that kind of food on the boat. It really p'd me off. So you just stand there and wait to die. Lin Hai said with a smile, is feeding you a crime? This is outrageous. Wapol said angrily, but what you just fed me, that was. Lin Hai smiled and said, just tell me, how would I know if you don't tell me? Damn it. Wapol ordered his two men, kill them for me. Just as Luffy was about to fight back, Lin Hai said, let me do it. Ahem, isn't it just a matter of glaring? Lin Hai ran and said, alas, I have such a talent, but I can't find words to describe it. It's really a tragedy of language. Damn it. Before he could finish his words, Labang, a giant rabbit creature, appeared in front of him. Luffy said, leave it to me. Before Luffy could make a move, Lin Hai used Conqueror's Haki, knocking them unconscious. Lin Hai was speechless. Luffy, our goal is to take Nami to see a doctor, please don't do unnecessary things, okay? Luffy pouted and said, it's all your fault, you're so mean. Ahem. Lin Hai said, do you feel that it's getting colder? Luffy nodded and said, I feel that way. The wind is really strong up here. Lin Hai said, yeah, I feel so cold, forget it, saving Nami is more important. The two were originally chatting while running, but as they ran higher, they spoke less and less, because there was a violent wind blowing on the hillside. After being in this storm for a long time, both of them lost the mood to chat and laugh. They didn't know how long they ran before they realized there was a huge stone wall in front of them. Ahem, the 90-degree kind, what should I do now? After a moment of silence, Lin Hai said, I can go up, how about you? Luffy said, I can, too. The two men's brains were frozen and they only had one thought left, which was to send Nami to the female doctor named Kulha. At this time, Lin Hai turned around and said, Nami, are you awake? Nami weakly cried, yeah, I'm awake. Lin Hai was about to put Nami down, and Luffy asked in confusion, what's wrong? Lin Hai explained, I wanted to use my spatial ability to run up directly, but I was afraid that Nami couldn't hold me, so I prepared to take off my clothes and use them as a rope. Luffy stopped him, take off my clothes. Lin Hai cried, don't die. Luffy cried, how is that possible? I won't die. After Luffy fixed Nami up and down, Lin Hai said, Nami, don't scream when you see something later. If you are scared, just close your eyes. Got it. Nami cried, ugh. Chapter 72. Those with the ability of OPOP fruit need to perform physical manipulation to change the position of objects in the space field, but Lin Hai does not need that. The space fruit is in the space field and can be completely utilized for space exchange. If there are no restrictions on abilities, then it would be an awakening state. These things themselves have huge loopholes, so it is a reasonable definition. If you don't like it, please don't criticize. At this time, Lin Hai opened a space field with a radius of 600 meters, and then Lin Hai and Nami instantly appeared at the top of the space field, standing on the temporary space barrier. But when the wind blew, Lin Hai almost fell down. The wind was too strong. After getting used to it, Lin Hai started to use his abilities again. Fortunately, Lin Hai had previously learned how to use the spatial barrier without opening the ability field. If I hadn't developed this ability in the first place, I would have fallen down at this moment when the space field was blocked. At this moment, Lin Hai had space barriers standing under his feet, and the wind direction was from left to right. Lin Hai directly opened a space barrier on the right side and placed it on his right shoulder. Wouldn't this fix him in place? Lin Hai couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, he is really a genius in the pirates' world, an irreplaceable fresh air. Nami, who was on Lin Hai's back, was awakened by the wind speed. When she opened her eyes, she exclaimed, "Ah!" Fortunately, neither of them fell. Lin Hai said depressedly, "Nami, close your eyes and don't bother me. Do you want us to fall down?" Nami's horrified cried, "I can't help it, I can't help it." To be honest, Lin Hai was also scared. There was a huge pillar in front of him that seemed to have no end. The wind was blowing from time to time, and there was a white snow below. If he fell down... Lin Hai quickly dismissed this idea and quickly sent Nami up. Luffy was still downstairs. On top of the huge pillar, a reindeer, Chopper, was looking into the distance, not knowing what he was thinking. Suddenly, a man carrying a woman appeared in front of him. For a moment, Lin Hai and Chopper looked at each other, and then Lin Hai said, "Are you a doctor? Can you help me take care of her? She's dying." Chopper looked at the human in front of him. His face was expressionless, but he didn't look annoying or scary. One could almost hear his request from his tone. Chopper was possessed by kaido. "Oh, okay." Chopper just turned around and saw that Lin Hai did not follow him, but put the woman down from his back. Chopper just watched quietly until he found that Lin Hai was about to jump down there. Chopper immediately exclaimed, "I promised you to save her, why are you still so upset?" The shrunken Chopper hugged Lin Hai's thighs tightly to prevent him from jumping down. Lin Hai touched Chopper's head and whispered, "There's another person down there, I'll go pull him up." Chopper. Without waiting for Chopper to continue being confused, Lin Hai said, "Her condition cannot be delayed. She has been infected with a rare virus. Go and save her. I will come find you later." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Hai disappeared from the open space. If there wasn't a woman on the snow, Chopper would have thought he was dreaming. Lin Hai, who used his ability to go down, discovered that Luffy's perseverance was not to be underestimated. In the snowstorm, he was seen climbing up little by little in thin clothes. Lin Hai then remembered that there were clothes in his space backpack. If he gave Luffy clothes, he would not come and beat him up, right? At this moment, Luffy saw Lin Hai standing there in the treasure half space, and his eyes lit up immediately and said, "Sije, Lin Hai, take me out to play." "Idiot!" Lin Hai said speechlessly, "Is it time to play now? I'll get you here, don't move." "Really? Pull me over here," Luffy said nonchalantly. "Wait until Lin Hai uses the space field to switch Luffy around, then, stinky straw hat, I shouldn't have trusted you." After some painful operations, Lin Hai finally pulled Luffy to the top of the huge house, which was outside the castle. Luffy looked at Lin Hai, who was lying on the snow and gasping for breath, and couldn't help but complain, "Lin Hai, you are too ignorant. Are you that tired? Let's go check on Nami quickly, okay?" Lin Hai was really angry. Luffy was always yelling beside him, "Sije, this is fun, that is fun." What's even more interesting is that Luffy wants Lin Hai to take him to play on the clouds. What are those clouds? As a demon fruit power, he is not afraid of being drowned. Lin Hai stood up weakly and hit Luffy on the head with his armament haki. "I really suspect that your grandfather's habit of hitting people was caused by your father." Luffy covered his head in confusion, "My dad? Do I have a dad?" "Ah ha ha ha." Lin Hai said speechlessly, "If you don't have a father, how can you appear in this world? Could it be that you burst out of a stone?" As soon as Luffy saw this expression, he knew that he was probably created by the collapse of rocks. Lin Hai had to cover his mouth violently and release observation haki to find Nami's location. At this time, Kulha, who is currently known as the only doctor on Drum Island, had just finished diagnosing Nami, and was startled by the sudden appearance of two people in front of her. Lin Hai introduced, "Hello doctor, my name is Lin Hai, his name is Luffy, is she okay?" Kulha shook her head and said, "Where did you go? How could she get this virus? This is an extinct virus. If I didn't have those antibodies here, she would really be hopeless." Luffy quickly straightened up and bowed to Kulha, "Arigato." At this moment, Chopper, who had become very small, poked his head out from beside Kulha and exchanged glances with Luffy. Luffy turned around and asked Lin Hai excitedly, "Is this a raccoon cat?" Chopper retorted, "I'm not a raccoon cat, I'm a reindeer." As he said this, Chopper showed off the antlers on his head. It would have been fine if Chopper hadn't lit up, but this time, it aroused Luffy's curiosity even more. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, "Reindeer, How interesting. After that, Luffy turned to look at Lin Hai and said, Hey Lin Hai, he just spoke, is he a monster? No, I want to invite him to be my partner. Monster, don't run away, be my partner. When Chopper heard people calling him a monster, he felt lost again. But, seeing Luffy rushing over, how could I be his partner? Chopper is a monster, how can he be friends with humans? Oh, don't come over here. Chopper ran away, and Luffy began to chase him. Ahem. Lin Hai on the side said awkwardly, it's too quiet here. You don't mind if it gets lively once in a while. Kulha shook her head and said, Chopper is mentally wounded. If you can heal him, I certainly wouldn't mind. Lin Hai smiled and said, this is easy. After saying that, Lin Hai turned to look in the direction of Chopper and shouted, Monster, don't run, you are surrounded. Kulha held her forehead with one hand, what a pair of noisy little brats. Chapter 73. After some treatment, Nami woke up in a daze, and the scenes from the past flashed through her mind. The strong man carried her all the way from the foot of the mountain to here. Nami still remembers how strong the wind was. Although Nami was wearing very warm clothes, she still felt the cold in a daze. From this point on, Luffy and Lin Hai must have suffered a lot, right? However, when Nami thought of Lin Hai's unruly behavior and his habit of hugging girls' waists at every turn, she couldn't help but say pooh. At this moment, Kulha entered the room and saw that Nami had woken up. She couldn't help but say, you're awake. If I'm not mistaken, you've been infected with this virus for 2 days, right? Hey. Nami nodded, yes. Thank you for saving me. Kulha waved her hands and said, you don't have to thank me. I have to repay you for saving you. So, how did you get infected with the virus? This virus only appears in primitive jungles, and your wound is near your belly. Did you wear belly-revealing clothes in the jungle? That's impossible. Who would be so boring? Upon hearing this, Nami interrupted awkwardly, Doctor, where are the 2 people who sent me here now? Are they okay? When talking about those 2 guys, Kulha exclaimed, those 2 guys are really energetic. They have climbed to an altitude of more than 4,000 meters, and they are not taking a rest yet. They are playing with my chopper. Chopper? Nami asked. Kulha explained, you were handed over to him by a man named Lin Hai, who is also a doctor. Now your 2 companions are clamoring to have Chopper as their partner. Nami asked curiously, did Chopper agree? Kulha shook her head and said, it's not that easy. Chopper has a mental illness, and I haven't been able to cure it in all these years. Nami said, can you tell me about him? Kulha explained, when Chopper was born, his nose was blue. Nami interrupted, blue nose. Kulha nodded and said, Chopper is a reindeer. Because his nose is blue, the deer thought he was a monster. Until one day, he accidentally ate the human fruit. Chopper can walk on 2 feet. Since then, he has been abandoned by the deer. Kulha sighed and continued, it doesn't matter. What hurt him the most was the doctor who adopted him, Shiluluk. Shiluluk walked into Chopper's heart and illuminated his life. It's a pity that Shiluluk died from the poison that Chopper gave him. From then on, Chopper's heart, which was originally open to humans, was closed again. At this moment, Chopper, who heard Kulha's story at the door, couldn't help but recall his past. Shiruluk originally had 10 days to live, but after taking the medicine he gave him, he only had half a day left. Because of this incident, Chopper always feels like he was the one who killed his savior. Whoa! The crying sound at the door interrupted Kulha and Nami who were chatting. Seeing Chopper crying, Kulha couldn't help but yelled angrily, Shiluluk didn't blame you for that incident, why are you crying again? Chopper cried, Dr. Kurha, I. At this time, Nami said gently, you are Dr. Chopper, right? Dr. Chopper. Chopper was stunned for a moment, then pointed at himself and said shyly, me, are you talking about me? Nami nodded and said, yes, thank you for saving me. A hole. Chopper said shyly, I won't be happy even if you say that to me. Nami was speechless, aren't you very happy? Chopper reacted and hid himself quickly, then secretly looked at Nami, but ended up scaring himself and running outside. Kulha slapped her forehead, do you see what's going on now? Chopper is very repulsive to strangers. Chopper who ran outside happened to run into Lin Hai and Luffy. Lin Hai was speechless, Chopper, stop running. I feel like you're not a reindeer. I should call you a mouse. Chopper, who was about to run away, stopped and turned around and said, "What did you say?" Lin Hai spread his hands and explained, "When you see people, you are like a mouse meeting a cat. Aren't you too timid?" Chopper was furious, "I'm not a mouse, I'm a reindeer." Before he could finish his words, Chopper was caught by Luffy, who immediately said with his eyes shining, "Lin Hai, I caught him." Indeed, Chopper hasn't had any contact with anyone for so long that he can't communicate. At this point, we can only resort to violent means to force Chopper to communicate. At this time, Lin Hai made a wicked expression on his face and said, "Keep running, you BD reindeer. It took us a long time to find you. We are so tired." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Hai lay down and went to sleep, using Chopper as a pillow. At this moment, Chopper was both surprised and happy. He was surprised that he met a stranger, but he was happy that he could have such close contact with humans. As for how to communicate with Chopper, it was left to Luffy. Lin Hai didn't think he would have the simple mind to communicate with Chopper. Chopper saw that he was being pinned down, and immediately said in fear, "Let me go, wohoho." Luffy said helplessly, "Chopper, will you be my partner?" Chopper cried, "How can this be possible?" Luffy asked in confusion, "Why?" Chopper takes it for granted that Kaido, "Because you are humans and I am a reindeer, how can we be partners?" Luffy said, "Stop talking nonsense and go out to sea with me. Adventure is very interesting. There are many interesting things in the blue sea." Chopper struggled, but... Lin Hai was speechless, "I'm wondering if you're still a man? You're always nagging when things happen." Chopper exclaimed, You went to bed, didn't you?" Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "What the hell are you doing sleeping? It's so cold, do you want to freeze me to death? By the way, why don't you go to the sea with us?" Chopper then began to express his concerns. "Don't you think it's weird? I have a blue nose and antlers. I'm a reindeer, but I walk on 2 legs. And I can speak human language. Don't you think I'm a monster?" Lin Hai put his hand on Chopper's shoulder and said with a smile, "That's it. Don't you know that there are fur tribes in the sea, that is, animals that can talk, and they are not friends of humans? Also, in the Fishmen Island, there are mermaids, their upper body is human, and the lower body is fish. I say, Chopper, all the things you worry about are due to your own narrow knowledge. A real man should go to the ocean and surf it for once. Sije, is that true?" Seeing Luffy and Chopper looking at him with shining eyes, Lin Hai's eyes twitched involuntarily. "What's up with this stinky straw hat? Didn't he call Chopper to his ship? What are you admiring now? Can you be more professional? Muhaha." At this moment, Wapol's voice sounded not far away, and everyone's attention was attracted to it. Chapter 74. Muhaha. Wapol said while sitting on the hairy hippo, "Straw Hat BD and that annoying guy, you actually dared to sneak away while I was asleep. Now you just accept the judgment obediently, muhaha." Ignoring Wapol's words, Lin Hai turned to Luffy and asked, "That guy's mount seems to be quite meaty. How about we have a barbecue later?" "Barbecue?" Luffy's mouth watered instantly, and he nodded immediately, "Sure, your barbecue is the best." Lin Hai quickly dodged to the side and exclaimed, "Can you stop being so disgusting and stop drooling?" After saying that, Lin Hai took out cane sugar and sprinkled it on the snow, then threw one at Luffy and one at Chopper. Chopper looked at the snowball in his hand in confusion. What was he doing? Luffy smiled and said, "Chopper, this snowball is delicious, eat it." Chopper licked it blankly and immediately exclaimed, "It's delicious. It's sweet." The hairy hippopotamus not far away was a little confused. Was it raining? Wasn't it snowing? How could there be water? Oh, it turned out that Wapol was drooling while watching. However, after being reminded by the 2 thugs around Wapol, Wapol immediately reacted and said angrily, "How dare you bastards ignore me?" After saying this, Wapol turned to his men and ordered, "Add 2 more laws to this country. Anyone who eats and does not share with the king will be convicted of a crime. Anyone who does not listen to the king will also be convicted of a crime." Chopper reacted and said angrily, "What do you bastards want to do after you come back?" Lin Hai stepped forward to stop Chopper, and then said to Wapol, "Wapol, listen carefully, we are pirates, hand over your mount to us for barbecue, otherwise I will ask Luffy and Chopper to beat you to death." Haha. Wapol laughed, what a fool. How courageous. Malimon and Jace, go ahead and kill them. After receiving the order, Wapol's two capable men, Malimon and Jace, took action immediately. This situation should be left to Luffy to handle. If Lin Hai comes, it will defeat the purpose of fighting with Chopper. After all, if you want Chopper to be your crew member, you should get to know him first, right? The expectation is good, but the reality is. Luffy was half squatting with one hand on the ground, second gear. Jet pistol. Wapol only felt as if two objects flew past the corners of his eyes. Wapol reacted and said quickly, Marimon, Jace, where the hell have you been? Luffy showed a sunny smile. Kaido, they were just beaten away by me. Chopper's eyes lit up and he said, Silk Cake 1. Because everything happened so fast, Wapol had no time to react, so he said in disbelief, Stop talking big, Straw Hat BD, what on earth did you do to them? Lin Hai slapped his forehead and said, Hey, we fought side by side, and now that's it. However, Lin Hai noticed the flag on the top of the castle and immediately had an idea. Lin Hai stepped forward and said, Do you see that flag? Wapol exclaimed, Who put that ugly flag up there? Take it down now. Hey, you're making so much noise. Get out of here. Lin Hai kicked Wapol's hairy hippopotamus directly to the horizon, taking Wapol with him. Lin Hai clapped his hands and said, The world is finally peaceful. Hey Chopper, who put that flag up there? Lin Fan asked, pointing to the top of the castle. Chopper Kaido, it was put there by Dr. Hiralook. Lin Hai continued to ask, Why did he put the pirate's flag up there? What does it mean? Do you know? Following Lin Hai's guidance, Chopper couldn't help but think of his past with Dr. Hiralook. Dr. Hiralook, there is nothing a man who has staked his life on this skull and crossbones flag cannot accomplish. Chopper, one day you will also go to the sea, and then you will understand how insignificant your troubles are. The island where you were born is so small in the whole world. At this time, Luffy put his hand on Chopper's head and whispered, I don't know what happened to that flag, but it wasn't hung up just for fun, was it? Since that flag cost a person's life, we should respect it. Chopper shuddered suddenly, as if his Ren and Du meridians were opened, and he vaguely understood something. Seeing this, Lin Hai added, turning the impossible into the possible, persevering, this is the belief of your respected Dr. Ziluluk, right? From what he said just now, it seems that Dr. Ziluluk has placed his dream on you, so. Lin Hai yelled, Chopper, what are you waiting for, let's go to sea. Oh. For a moment, the three of them hugged each other and cried bitterly, because they were all infected by the charm of Dr. Shiruluk. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. The host is rewarded with a record player with a song in it. Please check it. It's just a record player. Lin Hai wouldn't pay attention to that at this moment. At this time, Nami, who was watching from the window, couldn't help but laugh with tears in her eyes and said, What a bunch of baga. Is this the charm of those idiots? Kulha couldn't help but shed tears. She never expected that after all these years, she hadn't been able to cure Chopper's illness, but now it was cured by the two little kids in front of her. I don't know if Kulha was crying for the loss of Shilyaluk, or for the healing of Chopper's soul, or was moved by something in life. However, although she was happy, Kulha thought that Chopper was about to leave, and she immediately said unhappily, Why are you arguing? The patient still needs to rest. At this time, Zoro and Usopp also came here under the guidance of Dalton, the former captain of the guard, along with many residents. As soon as he saw Usopp and the others, Luffy immediately introduced them, Everyone, this is our new partner, Chopper. Chopper and Usopp looked at each other for a few seconds before Usopp exclaimed, Monster. Chopper was shy to begin with, and when he was called a monster, he instinctively ran away, and a game of chase ensued throughout the castle. Ahem, Lin Hai naturally didn't get involved, because he is a mature man. Because Lin Hai heard Vivi's words and couldn't help but PK up his ears. Vivi said, Zoro, why are you walking around in the forest with bare arms? Zoro explained, I went swimming in the ocean and ended up there without realizing it. Ahem. Lin Hai tried to hold back his laughter and said, Are you lost? Zoro immediately got angry and asked, What did you say? Lin Hai said loudly, I said you are lost. Vivi said speechlessly, You don't have to be so loud. Lin Hai said with a smile, He asked me to say it, I was afraid he couldn't hear it. Zoro shouted angrily, try to say that again. Zoro, you have a poor sense of direction. Stop right there, I'm going to chop you down. Chapter 75. Kulha opened the armory and ordered the residents of Drum Island to transport all the cannons inside to the outside of the castle and sprinkle the special powder that Dr. Hiluluk gave her when he was dying into the cannonballs. Suddenly, thunderous cannon fire rang out on Drum Island, setting off a century of fireworks for this pirate's era. Look, Chopper has reached the foot of the mountain and is watching the sky. Just as Dr. Hiluluk said, the whole Drum Island is covered with sakura flowers. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Luffy and Usopp said with shining eyes, "Si cake." Even Zoro, who was silent, could not help but exclaim, "This is truly an incredible masterpiece." Sanji muttered, "Is this what it means to make the impossible possible?" Chopper choked with tears, "Dr. Hiluluk, you did it, woo." Nami also exclaimed, "What a beautiful sakura flower." After saying that, Nami couldn't help but secretly glance at Lin Hai. Lin Hai said in a disappointing tone, "Isn't it just using pink pollen to sprinkle on the shells, then shooting them into the sky and mixing them into the snow? What's so great about that? How long are you going to be amazed? Daybreak is almost here." Everyone's face turned dark. "Ah, Matt, don't hit my face." When everyone returned to the Mary, it was already bright. Luffy seemed tireless and said excitedly, "Everyone, welcome Chopper to be our new partner. Shall we have a party?" "Good." Everyone shouted, except Lin Hai, who was sitting in the corner drawing circles, because Lin Hai had just been beaten up by everyone. Chopper had just joined the Straw Hat Pirates and was a little shy. Just when he didn't know what to do, Luffy and Usopp stuck chopsticks into his nostrils and mouth. "Chopper, come and join us, it's fun." Chopper was amused, but when he saw Lin Hai, he went over and nudged Lin Hai and said, "Lin Hai, what are you doing? Are you playing with everyone?" Lin Hai said unhappily, "Are you going to follow their example and stick chopsticks up your nose?" Usopp retorted, "Do you have something more interesting?" Luffy agreed, "Exactly. Do you have anything more interesting?" Whispering sound. Depression comes quickly and goes away quickly. Now someone is trying to compete with him in flirtation? Lin Hai won't agree to this. So, Lin Hai changed his previous attitude and said, "Chopper, watch out." Lin Hai imitated the werewolf dance in League of Legends, that is, with both hands at shoulder level, grabbing the air in one direction, then walking a few steps to the left, and then a few steps to the right. Suddenly, a magical dance appeared in the time and space where it shouldn't appear. Wasn't that the dance of Jackson from Blue Star? Could anyone escape this magic? Chopper's eyes lit up immediately and he said, "Lin Hai, teach me now." Luffy and Usopp thought chopsticks were no longer fun, and they both exclaimed, "We want to learn how to use them too." Vivi and Nami on the side stared blankly for a while, then they both held their stomachs and laughed so hard that they fell on the deck. "Ha ha ha! Lin Hai, where did you learn this dance? It makes me laugh to death, ha ha ha! Ouch, I can't do it anymore, can you please stop dancing? Ha ha ha!" Sanji and Zoro on the side also laughed. How could Lin Hai let Zoro go? That guy just wanted to avenge himself for calling him a road idiot, so he beat him up the hardest. So, Lin Hai forcibly pulled Zoro over. Zoro exclaimed, "Let me go, even if you kill me, I won't jump, help." After the banquet, everyone took a rest. After all, in this ship, at least Lin Hai and Luffy had never slept. At this time on the deck, Usopp and Chopper are chatting. Usopp said, "Chopper, guess what monster I encountered back then?" Chopper shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Usopp said, "At that time, our ship encountered a monster that was several kilometers high and several kilometers wide. Lin Hai and Luffy encountered it, and they were both scared and shouted for me to save them." Chopper exclaimed, "Really? Usopp? And what happened next?" Usopp looked up into the distance and said, "Then I took out a 40-meter-long sword, used my special skill, shouted Demasha, and slashed the monster in half." At this time, Luffy, who just woke up to find food, passed by and heard Usopp's words. His eyes lit up and he ran over and exclaimed with Chopper, "Silga, Usopp, you are so powerful." Sanji on the side was really speechless. Lin Hai, who was sleeping inside, was also speechless. He felt that he hadn't slept for long when he was woken up by the noise outside. Who could have guessed that Usopp was so awesome? And Luffy was even more awesome. What was he admiring? Lin Hai yawned and walked out of the room with lifeless eyes, and asked Nami beside him, Nami, how long will it take to get to Alabasta? Nami sighed, about 10 days. What? Lin Hai woke up instantly. Does it take so long? Nami rolled her eyes and said, didn't I make it clear just now? Lin Hai waved his hand and said, I heard it clearly. What happened to Vivi? Vivi was sitting there, looking worried, and Nami was helpless and had to spread his hands. Seeing Vivi's annoyed look, Lin Hai couldn't help but walk up to her and said, Vivi, what are you doing? Vivi explained, the situation in Alabasta is getting more and more critical. I am just worried about the people there. I am sorry if it affects you. Lin Hai waved her hand and said, you said you are the only princess of Alabasta, can you really be a good princess? Looking at you now, I really doubt you. Nami heard Lin Hai's words and wanted to step forward to remind Lin Hai, but was stopped by Lin Hai. Sanji on the side remained silent, vaguely feeling that Lin Hai seemed to have something to say. At this time, Vivi looked at Lin Hai with a little anger and said, am I wrong to worry about my people? Lin Hai spread his hands helplessly, if you want to inherit Alabasta's position in the future, there is definitely something wrong with your current thinking. Vivi asked, what's the problem? Lin Hai explained, a war involving millions of people is about to break out. Instead of thinking about the overall strategy and how to resolve this war, you are still worrying about which people will be hurt. If you don't think there is something wrong with your thinking, what is it? Vivi said angrily, then tell me, what is wrong with my thinking? Lin Hai slapped his head. Wasn't the problem already explained? This woman is really hard to communicate with. Lin Hai had to change his mind and said, the main conflict in your case this time is that the king secretly used dancing powder, right? Seeing Vivi nod, Lin Hai said, and the mastermind behind this incident is Crocodile, right? Vivi nodded again, and Lin Hai continued, what you should think about now is how to use us to defeat Crocodile, and then use us to resolve the misunderstanding between the king's army and the rebels. This is what you should be thinking about, instead of worrying about the war happening here or there, and how many people died there. As a decision-maker of a kingdom, you are still entangled in your own life and death. Can you really be the only princess of a country? Wake up! After hearing what Lin Hai said, Vivi was shocked, but how could that guy Lin Hai let herself use them? Seeing Vivi's embarrassment, Lin Hai said with a smile, what's wrong with using us? As a decision-maker, you must consider your own people. This is also what you should learn. But I can tell you, we went to Crocodile not for you, we went to him to ask for compensation for mental damages, lost wages, intimidation fees, shipping fees, etc., so you don't have to be grateful. After saying that, Lin Hai turned to look at Nami. He originally wanted to ask them if they minded, after all, the two sides had different goals, but the result was what both sides wanted. Now, okay, no need to ask. Because at this moment Nami's eyes were full of money, and she was still muttering, it doesn't matter what I use, I'm going to get rich this time, I'm going to get rich. Lin Hai, you are really a genius. Sanji, who was beside Nami, had already muttered with red eyes, Vivi-san, use me as much as you want. I am willing to do anything for you. Zoro opened his eyes with difficulty, said boring, and then closed his eyes again. Silk cake. Lin Hai, you have a really good brain. Are you a genius? Luffy, Usopp and Chopper on the side exclaimed again with their eyes shining after hearing what Lin Hai said. Seeing them like this, Lin Hai got angry. Can you bastards be quiet for a bit? Let me get some good sleep. You keep making noise. Do you really think I'm that pig, Zoro? Damn, here we go again. Before he could finish his words, Lin Hai was beaten again. I just woke up and suddenly saw so many flowers, so I posted tomorrow's chapter first. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.